Chapter 319. After the sect master of the Yuan school made a brief opening speech, a mysterious aura was emitted from the center of the martial arts field. 10 huge arenas rose from the ground and appeared in front of everyone's eyes. There were more than 30,000 disciples. Although the chances of first and second rank sects passing were extremely low, the chances of advanced sects passing were very high. Especially for the 8th and 9th rank sects, the number of eliminated disciples was very small. In the end, there were more than 6,000 disciples who were officially qualified for the competition. There was no competition in the Eastern continent that could compare with such a large number of disciples who were above the nascent soul realm. The top 10 9th rank sects will still be leading the competition. You will be divided into 10 groups according to your sections. On the rostrum, the first-rank sect masters will draw lots. An old man with a powerful aura appeared in the sky above the 10-direction arena. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand and sent out 12 undetectable lots wrapped in mysterious energy. Although there were more than 200 first-rank sects, only 12 of them had disciples who were officially qualified for the competition. In this situation, there were 2 groups with one more first-rank sect. There were more than 100 second-rank sects, and more than 50 of them had disciples who were officially qualified for the competition. Basically, there were no sects above the 3rd rank that were completely annihilated. Therefore, there were a total of nearly 300 sections. Immediately, the 12 first-rank sect masters sitting on the rostrum sent out their energy and absorbed one of the lots. Then it was the 2nd rank, 3rd rank, 4th rank, until the last 10 9th rank sections. They drew lots in order. The remaining sects that could not be evenly divided would be divided according to the order of the first round. Although it was not completely fair, at least the number of sects was equal. After the drawing of lots, the sects in each group were decided and the number of each group was given. This kind of grouping could not only show the strength of an individual, but also the overall strength of the sections. It was as if the groups were held at the same time. Soon, the results were out. The old man who acted as the referee immediately announced the groups that each sect belonged to. Sky Sword Sect. What a coincidence! When he learned that the Star-Picking Sect and the Sky Sword Sect were in the 6th group, Chern Hao's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. Humph! Boy, pray you don't meet me too early. At this moment, Wu Ruochen's eyes emitted a hint of coldness as he looked at Chen Hao and gritted his teeth. Even though he knew that with Chern Hao's Star-Picking Sect in the same group as the Heavenly Sword Sect, the Heavenly Sword Sect's results would more or less be affected by Chern Hao, this was what he wanted the most. In the other groups, he wasn't confident that he could stop Chern Hao from advancing. However, in his group, there was definitely a chance for him to encounter Chern Hao. If he was lucky enough to encounter Chern Hao early, he had absolute confidence that he could make Chern Hao lose his battle strength and directly stop him in the group stage. He wouldn't let anyone from the Star-Picking Sect get away. The only pity was that it was impossible to kill one's opponent in the intersect competition. This was because every single dueling ring was guarded by a pinnacle primordial spirit realm advanced stage expert. Once there was a life-threatening situation, they would definitely step in to save the other party. Even though Wu Ruochen could easily bribe the guards with his status, he did not dare to kill anyone. If he did, he would lose the right to continue the competition. Such a severe punishment was aimed at the disciples who held grudges. How that Wu Ruochen's strength is ranked 3rd or 4th. If he encounters you, he will definitely be heavy-handed. You have to be careful. If you can't, just admit defeat early and don't give him a chance. My goal is to fight with you. How can I be defeated by him? Don't worry. Hearing Xia Yuyu's words, Chern Hao's eyes flashed with pride as he transmitted his voice. Xia Yuyu was slightly taken aback. Then, a smile appeared on her beautiful little face as she transmitted her voice encouragingly. That's good. Yuyu, wait for me. Good luck. In fact, Xia Yuyu had no idea how strong Chen Hao was. In terms of pure attack power, he was 4 gems lower than Wu Ruochen. That was a huge gap. However, even though Xia Yuyu couldn't figure out how Chen Hao could defeat Wu Ruochen, she was secretly delighted when she heard Chen Hao's arrogant words. So what if he couldn't beat him? Wu Ruochen couldn't kill Chen Hao, nor did he dare to. And Chen Hao had the immortal bloodline. Even if he was seriously injured, it wouldn't be a big deal. Moreover, the confidence in Chen Hao's eyes made Xia Yuyu look forward to it. There were 10 groups. The number of 1st to 8th grade sects in each group was completely equal unless there was an odd number. The 9th grade sects each occupied a group. After the main judges of the 10-sided arena were in place, the disciples of the 1st and 2nd ranked sects in each group were the first to enter the arena, starting from the one with the worst results. It wasn't until all the disciples of one side were defeated by the other side that the decisive battle was over. In the even-numbered matches, the strongest of the sects would go up first, and the strongest would go up first. But no matter what, the sects with more people naturally had the absolute advantage. After all the sects in the group had fought, the group stage was half over. Through the sect-type battles, the individual ranking was evaluated by more than 500 sect leaders at the same time. The strength of the defeated opponent, the performance in the battle, and so on were all clear. No one could be biased. Once the ranking was out, the top 100 disciples of each group would enter the top 100 individual elimination round. All the disciples were clear about the specific segments before the competition, including the order of the sects to enter the arena. The first round was from the weak to the strong, and the next round was from the strong to the weak. There was no such thing as Tianji's horse racing. The reason for this was to give all the disciples a chance to perform. In a short moment, the entire 10 directions combat arena fell into a vigorous battle. How, the Zhaixing sect's results this time will definitely be good. The number of 6th grade sects in the competition is the same as yours. Some of them didn't even have 10. In the first round, if I meet a 6th grade sect, I won't have a chance to fight. Chen Hao smiled and said confidently. This confidence didn't come from Long Yukong or Yi Feishue, but from Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian. This was because in these few days, Helian Wuzi had finally reached the peak of the late nascent soul stage with the help of the spirit spring and a large amount of primordial crystal stones. In addition, Helian Wuzi could only use the power of reincarnation in battle. Chen Hao believed that Helian Wuzi would definitely have an amazing performance. At the very least, a half-step avatar would have to stand aside. Tantai Lian was also valiant and had successfully reached the mid-nascent soul stage. How much could a 7-star secret art increase in power? If Chen Hao wanted to fight, it would only be possible if he met a 7th grade, 8th grade, or 9th grade sect with a large number of people. You definitely won't have to fight in the first round. No matter which sect we meet, it's so boring. Luckily you're here, Xia Yuyu said. The Zhaixing sect was the 4th in the 6th group. It was time for them to fight in the second round. Their third opponent was also a 3rd grade sect, and they only had a pitiful 3 people. The weakest member of the Zhaixing sect defeated 2, the second defeated the 3rd, and the competition ended. In the second round, under the envious gazes of Ling Yihan and Xia Yuyu, Chen Hao, as the strongest member of the Zhaixing sect, had a chance to fight. His figure flashed and he appeared in the 6th arena. His opponent was the second in the group, a 7th grade sect. At this moment, the entire martial arts practice field turned to look at the 6th ring. Without a doubt, the Zhaixing sect and Chen Hao were now the focus of this year's intersect competition. Moreover, Chen Hao had the highest test score among the contestants so far. The Zhaixing sect had 10 people. That 7th grade sect was one of the stronger ones among the 7th grade sections. They were even stronger than the Flying Sword sect, with a total of 18 people. They were only 2 people short of the Zhaixing sect. Moreover, the strongest member of this 7th grade sect was a half-step avatar, but during the test, he had struck out with an attack power of 89. This was also not to be underestimated. Chen Hao, right? Attack power doesn't mean everything. I'll let you understand that the gap between realms, the comprehension of the true essence, and the use of battle techniques are the key to battle power. Your Zhaixing sect, I alone, will defeat all of you. Ha ha. How can a small 3rd grade sect let you turn the sky upside down? A short, ugly young man with a mustache stared at Chen Hao and said arrogantly the moment he stepped onto the arena. The aura of a half-step avatar surged from his body unscrupulously. His big hand was dragging a huge axe that was 3 times longer than his height. It must have weighed at least a few thousand kilograms. Shining brightly, it looked quite majestic. This made Chen Hao feel very amused. Motherf asterisk her. Just this appearance alone made Chen Hao have the impulse to beat him up. How dare he boast so arrogantly? This Ai Qianquo is not simple. He was born with divine strength and has comprehended the true essence of the earth attribute to the peak of the greater success stage. His heavy and majestic attack could not be shown during the test. This is a bit interesting. I hope Chen Hao's battle power is as great as the rumors say, otherwise it will not be easy to win. You still don't believe me? Let me tell you, Ai Qianquo is no match for Chen Hao. Just wait and see. I can guarantee that Chen Hao will defeat at least the top 5 experts of their sect. Many people in the crowd were discussing. Some people who had not really seen Chen Hao's strength naturally could not help but doubt. After all, the test did not represent battle power at all, especially for real geniuses. But the very few who had seen Chen Hao's invincible power firmly believed in Chen Hao's battle power. Don't cry later. 18 people isn't a lot. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a slightly evil and arrogant smile no matter how one looked at it. You? Come on. Boom. The moment the referee indicated that they could start, Ai Qianquo's 2 thick and short legs suddenly stomped on the ground. His whole body rose up violently, and the big axe he was dragging became a clenched grip with both hands. A heavy and majestic terrifying aura that could split mountains and fill the sea suddenly swept across the entire arena. First update. I have been writing since this morning. This is the first time I have completed it. I have racked my brains, looking for monthly votes to encourage me. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 320. At this moment, the mysteries of the peak of the earth attribute allowed everyone to clearly feel that Ai Qianquo's axe contained a mountain-like, suffocating pressure. Some of the disciples with weaker cultivations widened their eyes in shock. If they were to face such an attack, just this pressure alone would be enough to make them unable to move an inch. Not bad. Chen Hao thought in his heart. His black eyes were indifferent and calm like water, and he stared motionlessly at the enormous axe that was swiftly enlarging in his eyes. 30 feet, 10 feet, 50 feet, 10 feet. Just when some ignorant people thought that Chen Hao was intimidated by the opponent's pressure and had no ability to resist, 2 bright lights suddenly flashed in Chen Hao's eyes. Clang. Chi. Boom. Drawing the sword, striking, thrusting, sheathing the sword, fast, ruthless, accurate. In the blink of an eye, he had completed the simplest attack that everyone knew but no one used anymore. It was as if there was no ultimate skill involved, and it was just a movement that sword apprentices could perform. But with a loud bang, Ai Qianquo's short and stout body flew out like a kite with a broken string, fiercely crashing into the boundary of the arena. The huge axe also flew out of his hand. His countless gasps could be heard in the arena. Even those who already knew that Chen Hao would easily win revealed a look of surprise. No one had thought that a half-step incarnation-level expert with terrifying strength would not even have the chance to resist in a single move. His weapon was sent flying and he collapsed on the arena. They were even more surprised when they saw blood spurting out from the corner of Ai Qianquo's mouth. So strong! The most basic sword skill can actually display such power. Too powerful. I'm afraid that apart from those at the incarnation level, no one can fight with Chen Hao. His fighting strength is far beyond imagination. Everyone exclaimed as they looked at Chen Hao, who stood there calmly and proudly as if he had not used his sword at all. Xia Yuyu's beautiful little face revealed a trace of surprise and joy. Even she did not expect that Chen Hao could cultivate a simple sword to such a level. Not only was it fast and accurate, it was also incomparably smooth. There were no flaws in the connection between drawing the sword, thrusting the sword, stabbing, and sheathing the sword. In the entire martial arts arena, only Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and Ling Yihan were not surprised at all. In their hearts, anything that happened to Chen Hao was not surprising. This was only the beginning. They knew very well that in the following matches, Chen Hao would definitely shine the brightest. Just like how Chen Hao had once done on the ranking of the 100 dynasties, he would defeat all the opponents that seemed powerful and had no chance of victory. Humph. It's just that his attack power is stronger than that idiot's, his speed is faster, and he's able to find a flaw. He's no threat to me at all. Wu Ruochen saw everyone's surprise, and a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes as he thought to himself disdainfully. Next. A moment later, when the referee was certain that Ai Qianquo had no combat power left, he shouted, "Wind Shadow, don't go head-to-head with that kid. It's basically impossible for you to defeat him with your strength. Just drag it out and exhaust his vital essence. We have 18 people. Can't we defeat 10 of them?" Yes. The disciple named Wind Shadow was ranked second in the sect, just a little bit behind Ai Qianquo. The moment he was about to enter the arena, the sect elder transmitted a message to him. "You're very strong, but it won't be that easy to defeat me." The moment the disciple named Wind Shadow stepped onto the arena, he looked at Chen Hao with a serious expression and said. His entire aura became erratic at this moment. Wisps of cool breeze swirled around him, as if he could turn into a gust of cool breeze at any time. When the referee put down his hand, he immediately disappeared from the spot. Mastery of the true essence of the wind attribute? Not bad. Chen Hao sensed his opponent's aura and thought to himself. It had to be said that these disciples had already reached a realm in the true essence of the wind attribute that even Chen Hao was envious of. But it was useless to him. Especially after experiencing the terrifying baptism of heaven's punishment, Chen Hao's soul perception had been improved tremendously. Qi. When Wind Shadow turned into a gust of cool breeze and became erratic and unpredictable, everyone thought that Wind Shadow would be able to fight Chen Hao for a long time. But then, Chen Hao suddenly attacked with his sword. It was still the same simple sword attack. Even his posture and expression did not change at all. The only difference was that his speed was faster. Under his amazing speed, the distance of several hundred feet was like a straight waterfall, leaving behind many afterimages. Without giving too much time to guess, a scream accompanied by an arrow of blood appeared in front of everyone's eyes. In less than 2 breaths, Wind Shadow followed in Ai Qianquo's footstep. It was still the same sword attack, the same sword attack. How did he lock onto Wind Shadow so quickly? No one knew. Then, the third, the fourth, the fifth. Every time, it was the same sword attack. Moreover, as his opponent became weaker and weaker, Chen Hao's sword attack also slowed down automatically, as if he did not want to waste a single bit of his energy. And every time, there was no suspense. After 5 consecutive attacks, the psychological defense of the remaining 13 people from the Grade 7 sect was completely destroyed. No one thought that Chen Hao would be so powerful. Most importantly, Chen Hao did not seem to use any energy at all. This was the most unbearable thing. 18 swords, 18 people. Chen Hao returned to Xia Yuyu's side in high spirits. A rank 7 sect had been overturned by him so easily. This boy is really not simple. He didn't reveal any of his trump cards from the beginning until the end. Looks like nobody can force him to show his true strength unless he meets someone on the manifestation stage, many old men on the main platform thought to themselves. With their experience, it was natural for them to see more clearly than anyone else. Meanwhile, the sect leader of Ling Tian's sect, Xia Lingfeng, stared at Chen Hao, who was sitting with his precious granddaughter from afar. The more he stared, the more he felt the competition continued. Soon, everyone's attention was attracted by another ring. Chen Hao, who was the first to defeat all of his opponents, was gradually overshadowed by his brilliance. Without even drawing his sword, he defeated everyone from a grade 8 sect by himself. After that, all the top powerhouses from the top 10 sects went on the same pattern. Including Wu Ruochen, they all passed the round by themselves with ease. When Xia Yuyu went on the stage, the whole place was in an uproar. What made Chen Hao a little speechless was that the young disciples of the grade 6 sect that the Ling Tian sect had encountered were all in a daze when they went up the ring to battle Xia Yu. Their strength was already worlds apart from Xia Yuyu's, and if they were in a daze, how could they fight? Xia Yuyu seemed to be playing with them as she casually released energy and beat the crap out of them. They did not forget to look at Xia Yuyu when they vomited blood. In fact, when they encountered these grade 9 sects, everyone was just playing around. How could they possibly win? Even if the top powerhouse ran out of energy and fought them one-on-one, they would be drowned by the sheer number of people. Under such circumstances, who would have the heart to fight the top beauty in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world? They all went up to take a closer look so that when they returned, they could boast about the experience of fighting on the same stage as Xia Yuyu. In the third round, the star-picking sect encountered a grade 3 sect. They started from the weakest, and even Tantai Lien did not have a chance to attack before the star-picking sect won easily. In the fourth round, they started from the strongest to the weakest. Chen Hao still used the same sword move and defeated a grade 5 sect. After the day's competition ended, there were a total of 10 rounds. What made Wu Ruochen very depressed was that, because of Chen Hao's strength, the judges had clearly placed the star-picking sect in a very high position. The Skysword sect and the star-picking sect were never allowed to meet. In these 10 rounds, Chen Hao took the lead in all the even-numbered rounds. The audience almost vomited blood when they saw this. The reason was very simple. This guy only used the same one-sword move over and over again. However, even the 3 rank 8 sects that he encountered were defeated by him. Moreover, no one could make Chen Hao use the second sword move. Even some of the grade 9 sects number 1 Incarnation Realm experts were defeated by Chen Hao. Because other than Xia Yuyu, Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen, the other 6 grade 9 sects number 1 experts were all unable to maintain the same state. Ha ha ha, good. I never thought that you would be so strong. And Xiaoyan is also very strong. Ha ha ha, keep it up. If this continues, it's very possible for us to get second place in the group. Ha ha ha. When the day's competition ended and everyone returned to the courtyard, Yuan Tairan and the 3 elders' faces were like blooming daisies. They were glowing and full of energy. Yuan Tairan, the sect master, could not stop laughing in front of everyone. He had completely lost the dignity that a sect master should have. The 3 of you don't need to be depressed. There will always be a chance to fight. As long as you perform well, there will be no problems. I really hope that you will never have a chance to fight. Then our star-picking sect will definitely be first place in the group. Ha ha. Yuan Tairan looked at the depressed Long Yukong, Yi Feishue, and Helian Wuzi and laughed. The 3 of them were indeed depressed, especially Long Yukong, who wanted to show his strength. One day, 10 matches, and the 3 of them did not have a chance to fight. The competition from weak to strong ended when it came to Tantai Lien. Tantai Lien's terrifying power of the Phoenix inheritance swept all the remaining people. And when it came to weak, Chun Hao was even more perverted. Even against grade 8 sects, there was no exception. How could the three of them not be depressed? After waiting for an entire day, they did not even have a chance to fight, but even though they were depressed, they were still happy. After all, if Chun Hao were to be defeated, it would very likely mean that the star-picking sect had lost. Sect Master. Ruochen, you don't look good today. What's wrong? When the people of the Sky Sword sect gathered in the courtyard, Wu Ruochen's expression was extremely gloomy. He suddenly transmitted his voice to the sect master. Second update. Thank you for your tips and votes. Thank you. Wu Shan continued with the third update. It might be a bit late. Brothers and sisters with monthly votes, can you vote for Wu Shan? Only a pitiful 2 today. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 321. It's nothing. Sect Master, can we meet the Zhaixing sect in the competition tomorrow? Why? Did that kid upset you? The sect master of the Sky Sword sect asked. Although he didn't know what had happened before the competition, he knew why Wu Ruochen had brought the disciples of the Sky Sword sect over early in the morning. But in the end, it was Chun Hao who sat with Xia Yu. In addition, Chun Hao's outstanding performance today was no less than Wu Ruochen's. It wasn't hard to guess Wu Ruochen's thoughts. That kid already knows Xia Yu, and their relationship seems to be. Sect Master, I can't help it. If it's possible, let me fight him tomorrow. If a small third-rank sect can achieve results that even an 8th-rank sect can't because of that kid, it's ridiculous. This is a small matter. There's no problem with the arrangement, but the strength that Kid and Ling Yihan showed today is no less than the top experts of the 6th-9th rank sects, including the Spirit Serpent Valley. They might even become your rivals, Sect Master. He's no match for me. Don't worry. He's no match for you, that's for sure. But you should know that this is only the group stage. If you want to take him down, it's impossible not to reveal some of your trump cards. Your opponents are Gu Xing, Chu Qingtian, and Xia Yu, not him. Ruochen, your temper is your biggest weakness. You have to consider this carefully. You can't lose the big picture for the small things. According to me, don't fight him before the group stage. I'll arrange for you to meet the Zhaixing sect in the odd-numbered matches, and let Meng Lang and the others deal with the Zhaixing sect. This way you can test that kid's bottom line. It won't be too late to deal with him after the top 20. Sect Master. Wu Ruochen didn't expect the Sect Master to think so highly of Chun Hao. This made him feel surprised and unhappy. Alright, that's it. Also, don't show your emotions on your face. Otherwise, you'll suffer a great loss. The Sect Master stopped Wu Ruochen. Watching Wu Ruochen leave, the Master of the Sky Sword sect shook his head helplessly. There was something he did not tell Wu Ruochen. With the strength that Chun Hao and Ling Yihan had shown today, even if they could not compete with Wu Ruochen and the others, there was a slight possibility that they could obtain a greater opportunity. After all, the two of them had a great advantage in terms of age and performance. Only Xia Yu could surpass them in this aspect, while Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing and Chu Qingtian were inferior. If Chun Hao really obtained the favor of the immortal reverend of the limitless immortal palace, offending such a person was definitely not a good thing. Even a rank 9 sect had to be wary. So, the girl you were talking about was Xia Yu? After the people of the Zhaixing sect dispersed, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian followed Chun Hao to his room. Tantai Lian glared at Chun Hao and asked. Chun Hao was slightly stunned and said, "What did Xia Lan say to you?" "She said everything." How? Helian Wuzi imitated Xia Yu's voice, and there was a trace of dissatisfaction on her cold little face. But it was not as serious as Chun Hao thought. After a slight pause, she said, "Did you really know her in the secular world? And you stayed together for more than a year? Was it that time when you entered the relic?" Ahem. Chen Hao smiled and shrugged. He sat on the chair and said, "You already guessed it, so why ask?" "Can't I ask? What kind of relic was it? Why did it take so long?" Helian Wuzi asked. "It was a relic that was specially condensed for a man and a woman. Yu and I were coincidentally chosen at the same time. We had to comprehend the 9 turns of Heaven-Yang Earth-Yin formula before we could come out. I comprehended the Heaven-Yang, and she comprehended the Earth-Yin. At that time, my cultivation was too low, so it took more than a year." "Was it dual cultivation?" Tantai Lian asked. "Not exactly, it was just a kind of spiritual dual cultivation," Chen Hao said frankly. "Then you desperately wanted to step into the cultivation world earlier, was it for Xia Yuyu, right?" Helian Wuzi thought of the scene at that time and couldn't help but ask. She more or less felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. In fact, anyone would feel uncomfortable. She desperately chased after Chen Hao's footsteps, but Chen Hao desperately chased after another woman's footstep. Who would feel good? Haha. Seeing Helian Wuzi's expression, Chen Hao smiled, and a touch of seriousness and determination flashed on his extraordinarily handsome face. He said, "There is no such thing as for anyone. From the time I entered the Shao family and became a martial artist, my goal was to reach the peak of martial arts and become a true powerhouse. I once told you, the land of women is the tomb of a hero. I also scolded you many times, a femme fatale. Without Yu, I would have done that. It's only because of Yu, or rather, because of Yu's father and grandfather, that I urgently wanted to step into the cultivation world." As Chen Hao spoke, his angular face naturally flashed with a hint of arrogance that looked down on the world. It was an arrogance that came from his bones, and a trace of coldness appeared on his expression. He continued, "Nobody can trample on my dignity. No matter who he is, no matter how strong he is." Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian might have been affected by Chen Hao's aura. They originally had some thoughts, but at this moment they couldn't say anything. They just stared at Chen Hao in a daze, and in their hearts, they didn't doubt Chen Hao's words at all. Especially when they thought of Chen Hao's experience in these few years. It confirmed Chen Hao's words. Yu is a very good person. She knows you guys. But she didn't say anything. Okay, you guys go back and cultivate. In today's competition, the strong sex happened to let me fight. Tomorrow, Xiao Wu, Senior Sister Yi, and Long Yukong, I'm afraid the 3 of you will also have to fight. If you meet the Sky Sword Sect, it will definitely be a tough battle. Go back and prepare well." Chen Hao's voice softened as he said to the 2 girls. Oh, at this time, the 2 girls nodded obediently and walked out of Chen Hao's palace together. After the 2 of them left, Chen Hao, whose expression seemed to be very serious, let out a long sigh of relief. The corners of his mouth slightly curled up, revealing a slightly complacent smile. He muttered to himself, "The problem of the heart is actually not a problem. It seems very simple. Cultivate, cultivate, everything is centered on stepping onto the peak of the martial Tao, isn't it? Haha. If I meet Wu Ruochen tomorrow, it will definitely be a tough battle. The peak of the middle stage of the incarnation realm, just strength alone, surpasses me by a lot. Moreover, the Sky Sword Sect has 2 incarnation realm experts. It's very difficult." After stepping into the cultivation room and sitting cross-legged, Chen Hao thought to himself. Although his performance today was unfathomable in the eyes of everyone, Chen Hao knew that the seemingly simple sword strike was the fusion of the solitary sword technique and the platinum sky-splitting slash. It definitely consumed a lot of energy. Fortunately, the sects he met were not very strong, and the opponents were getting weaker and weaker, so he could maintain the momentum of defeating them with one sword strike. In addition to his abnormal recovery ability, it made him look like he was in peak condition every time, as if he did not consume much energy. But in fact, Chen Hao knew very well that once he met an incarnation realm expert, he would definitely not be able to maintain that state. Moreover, His personality had always been to do things to the end. As a disciple of the star-picking sect, since he had come to this step, there was no reason for him not to lead the star-picking sect to fight for first place in the group. This also meant that not only did he have to defeat Wu Ruochen, but he also had to defeat the other Incarnation Realm expert of the Sky Sword sect, as well as a large number of half-step Incarnation Realm and late nascent Soul Realm experts. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Long Yukong, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and the others to take down the Sky Sword sect, which had a large number of disciples. How could 10 people compare to the Sky Sword sect, which had close to 200 people who passed the test? Even Chern Hao only had this ambition, but he did not have the slightest confidence. If others knew that Chern Hao had this idea, they would probably be scared silly. Was this something that a human could do? Huff, letting out a long breath, Chern Hao collected his thoughts, took out 2 extremely precious top-grade primordial crystal stones, placed them on his palms, and immersed himself in cultivation. In his dantian, the 7-colored nascent soul emitted a misty 7-colored light. As Chern Hao recited the primary outline of the Great Tao, the vigorous and surging true essence immediately flowed like a torrent through his thick meridians, circulating endlessly. At the same time, the 5 elements soared hidden in the depths of his mind, which had been fused with the inheritance of the 5 divine beasts, began to emit a bright light under the scouring of the true essence, refining and fusing the 5 divine beasts. This was the only thing that Chern Hao could look forward to right now. The Sword Tao realm and elemental will were not something that could be broken through overnight. The same was true for comprehending the laws of heaven and earth. Moreover, Chern Hao also clearly sensed that he would not be able to break through to the late nascent soul stage in a short period of time. The fusion of the 5 divine beasts was the only thing that could allow him to make progress in a short period of time. That night, in a large and luxurious restaurant, a graceful figure sat lazily on a soft and comfortable chair by herself, leaning against the window. She held the best and most expensive spirit wine in the restaurant in her hand and looked at the bustling lights outside the window. Her aura was not strong. In fact, it could even be said that she was very weak. Such a beautiful woman drinking alone in a place like a restaurant would definitely attract a lot of attention. Moreover, there would definitely be many people who would come up to chat her up, and there would even be many people who would have improper thoughts about her. However, this woman sat there for a full 4 hours, and not a single person approached her. Even if there were people who wanted to approach her, when they were 30 feet away from her, they would feel an inexplicable fear that came from the depths of their hearts, and they would not dare to come any closer. Although the woman's gaze was fixed outside the window, she could clearly hear the discussions of the cultivators in the restaurant, which were filled with almost no empty seats. In just one night, the woman's ears were already filled with calluses from listening to the names of several people. When the woman left in the middle of the night, she muttered in her heart, "Is the Eastern continent really as good as these people say? And there are a few of them?" Third update. If you have a monthly vote, please vote for Wushan. Thank you. I will continue to work hard tomorrow. I have been working hard for the whole day today, but the first chapter was stuck too much and took up too much time. Wushan's speed is not fast. Even if I try my best, I will not be able to reach the 5th or 6th update. I have tried my best. I will continue to work hard tomorrow. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 322. On the second day, there were 12 rounds of competition. In all the even-numbered rounds, Chern Hao still managed to clear all the rounds by himself. In the odd-numbered rounds, Yi Feishue and Helian Wuzi finally had a chance to fight. But they were all stopped by Helian Wuzi's terrifying strength, which made Long Yukong unable to vent his frustrations for an entire day. Moreover, Long Yukong also noticed that Helian Wuzi, who had the same result as him during the test, was ranked behind him due to the difference in realm. But now, Helian Wuzi's terrifying combat power was already much stronger than his. Note: Helian Wuzi's test result was misremembered by Dark Mountain. The front has been corrected. Helian Wuzi and Long Yukong both got 86. Sorry, Ling Yihan's performance was not inferior to Chen Hao's. Everyone was surprised, especially when they found out that Chen Hao and Ling Yihan were the first and second runners-up of the 100 Empire ranking 3 years ago and tied. Some meddlesome cultivators even gave Chen Hao and Ling Yihan a very awesome nickname, the Legendary Twins. In 2 days there were 22 rounds of competition. Other than the top 10 sects, only the Zhaixing sect and the Wandan Pavilion could maintain their winning streak. Now, more than half of the group sect battles had been completed. There were a total of 295 sects qualified. Groups 1 to 5 had 30 sects, and groups 6 to 10 had 29 sections. This meant that the Zhaixing sect only had 6 matches left. By now, it was clear to everyone that Group SIX's Star-Picking sect and Group 9's Myriad Pill Pavilion, under the leadership of Chen Hao and Ling Yihan, the 2 monstrous geniuses, would take second place without much suspense. They were looking forward to seeing how Chen Hao and Ling Yihan would perform when the Zhaixing sect met the Sky Sword sect, and the Wandan Pavilion met the Piao Miao sect. If there were no surprises, the last match of each group would be between the strongest sect in the group and the 9th rank sect. From the looks of it, Ling Yihan and Gu Xing, Chen Hao and Wu Ruochen would definitely face each other in the final round, which would be tomorrow's even-numbered 6th round. How would the dark horses, Chen Hao and Ling Yihan, perform when faced with 2 veteran geniuses? Would it go dark all the way, or would it be suppressed by Wu Ruochen and Gu Xing? Without a doubt, this was what everyone looked forward to the most. Especially since news of the conflict between Lone Star and Chen Hao had already spread. Almost everyone knew about it. If these 2 met, it would definitely be a battle of life and death. The next day, at 7 a.m., the entire martial arts practice field was filled with a sea of people, so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The buzzing sounds of discussion resounded in every corner of the martial arts practice field. Ever since the first day Chen Hao, Xia Yuyu, Ling Yihan, and Zhao Yuanqing sat together, the 4 of them had been sitting together for the past 2 days, regardless of whether they came early or late. Moreover, he had undoubtedly become the center of attention of the entire martial arts practice field. For the past 2 days, Wu Ruochen had a gloomy expression on his face, as if his father had died. Until now, although he was still unhappy, he knew that the sect master's arrangement was right. His opponents were Gu Xing and Chu Qintian. Before he fought with the 2 of them, it would be unwise for him to expose some of his trump cards because of Chen Hao. Gu Xing's expression still did not change, but the battle intent in his heart was rising. Ling Yihan, who was in the same group, had displayed strength that was no less shocking than Chen Hao. Moreover, Gu Xing could faintly feel that Ling Yihan had not displayed his true strength until now. The time has come. Let's begin. Following the Yuan Gate Master's words, 10 judges suddenly appeared in the 10-sided arena. First group, White Cloud Sect vs Sky Eagle Sect. Please enter. Second group, Sword Rain Pavilion vs Tyrant Blade Sect. Please enter. 9th group, Floating Mist Sect vs Myriad Pill Pavilion. Please enter. Crash. As the judges in the 10-sided arena announced one after another, there were no abnormalities until the 8th group. However, when it came to the 9th group, the entire martial arts practice field was in an uproar. Including the numerous sect masters on the rostrum, they were a little surprised. What was going on? The 9th group, the match between Myriad Pill Pavilion and Floating Mist Sect, was expected to be the most exciting match in the 9th group. If there were no surprises, the judges should have arranged for it to be the last match. However, no one expected it to appear in the first match. The buzzing sound of discussion immediately resounded throughout the martial arts practice field. They all expressed their dissatisfaction with the judge's arrangement. Yes, dissatisfaction. Because, in the ninth group, everyone was looking forward to the match between Ling Yihan and Gu Xing. However, if it was arranged in the first round, the order of appearance would be from the weakest to the strongest. No matter how powerful Ling Yihan was, it would be impossible for him to meet Gu Xing in the last round. Hee. Seeing everyone's gaze on him, the Floating Mist Sect Master smiled slightly and said without any embarrassment, "That's right. I specifically ordered it. This Ling Yihan's strength is not inferior to the top geniuses of our ninth grade sections. If Gu Xing meets him at this time, you will benefit from it. I can't let Gu Xing suffer this loss. If they want to fight, let them fight when they reach the top 20. That's only fair. Brother Gu is right. Chen Hao is the same. Today's third round will be the match between our Sky Sword Sect and the Star-Picking Sect. Haha. The Sky Sword Sect Master smiled slightly and spoke in support. This guy and the Floating Mist Sect Master had met last night to discuss this matter and immediately hit it off. He believed that the others had nothing to say. After all, it was only the order of appearance. The sect tournament was a round robin, so there was not much difference whether it was early or late. It could not change the result. It was also because of this that the judges had the power to arrange the matches on their own. You two old guys really can't take any losses. However, it seems that you don't trust your own disciples, haha. The Yuan Sect Master said proudly. That's good too. Ling Yihan breathed a sigh of relief when he heard that the Myriad Pill Pavilion and the Floating Mist Sect would appear. The Floating Mist Sect did not want Gu Xing to expose his strength early, and Ling Yihan did not want to do the same. Ling Yihan did not have the perverted idea of defeating the Floating Mist Sect like Chen Hao. The disparity in numbers and strength was too great. It was simply impossible. However, Chen Hao frowned slightly. Especially after he caught the conversation of the guys on the rostrum, he was even more depressed. It did not seem to affect the result, but that was what others thought. For Chen Hao, it was very different. If Chen Hao defeated Wu Ruochen, the momentum of the Sky Sword Sect would be greatly affected. As long as Chen Hao gritted his teeth and relied on his perverted physical talent and recovery ability, he might be able to exceed his limit and defeat dozens or even hundreds of people. The remaining people's cultivation would definitely not be as good as Long Yukong, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and Yi Feishu. Moreover, Helian Wuzi's recovery ability under the mystery of reincarnation was definitely beyond Chen Hao's imagination. Perhaps a miracle could really happen and he could achieve his grand goal. But with this, it undoubtedly made the hope even slimmer. How long could the Star-Picking Sect last with only 10 people? The Sky Sword Sect had nearly 200 people. Most importantly, under such circumstances, even if Chen Hao fought to the end, he would have exhausted his vital essence and overdrawn his essence, qi, and spirit. At that time, if he fought against Wu Ruochen in her peak state, what were his chances of winning? These were two completely different concepts. Gu Xing, who was sitting not far away, was also quite surprised. However, his expression did not change, and only the fighting spirit in his heart slowly retracted. The competition began with a bang. Without a doubt, in the first round of the first round, the 9 people became the focus of the entire martial arts practice field. Win as many rounds as you can. This is the time to show the true strength of our Myriad Pill Pavilion. A 7th grade sect is too low for us. This time, not only will we be promoted to an 8th grade sect, but we will also be the top existence among 8th grade sects. Don't be afraid, fight with your spirit. When you return to the sect, you will be greatly rewarded. The elder of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, when the sect's weakest disciple appeared, transmitted a message to his disciple at the same time. Up until now, the Myriad Pill Pavilion's achievements had been quite dazzling because of Ling Yihan. They were already the top existence among 7th grade sections. This time, there was no doubt that they would be promoted to an 8th grade sect. If they performed better, they could definitely become the top existence among 8th grade sections. Their sect's foundation was no less than that of an 8th grade sect. Ihan, just do your best. Your real stage is after the top 20. Don't expose your trump card for now. Hearing the elder's message, Ling Ihan nodded slightly. The 7th grade Myriad Pill Pavilion had a total of 23 people who were officially qualified for the competition. The 9th grade Floating Mist sect had a total of 184 people, second only to the Yuan Gate and Sky Sword sect. After a vigorous battle for half an hour, the 22 people of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, except for Ling Ihan, were all annihilated. However, the results were satisfactory to the Myriad Pill Pavilion. 22 people eliminated 34 people with the lowest cultivation from the Floating Mist sect. Sigh, the 22 of us are not as strong as the 9 of you. Ling Ihan shook his head and said to Chen Hao. After that, his figure flashed and rushed to the arena. As the first master of the Myriad Pill Pavilion and the only one left, the moment Ling Ihan appeared on the arena, the entire arena began to buzz with discussion again. Guess, how many rounds can Ling Ihan win in a row? Right now, the Myriad Pill Pavilion has only eliminated 34 people, and they are all at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm. There are more than 10 people at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm, followed by more than 30 at the peak of the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Although Ling Ihan is at the early stage of the incarnation realm, I'm afraid 50 people is his limit. More than 50 people? This guy has eliminated at least 100 people. Chen Hao said softly when he heard the crowd's discussion. How, you know him very well? Xia Yuyu asked with a little surprise. If Ling Ihan could eliminate 100 people, the last 10 people would all be at the peak of the late stage of the nascent soul realm. How strong would his true essence be? I know him, but the most important thing is that this guy has to compete with me at all times. Since he went first, he will definitely challenge his limits and grit his teeth. Chen Hao said with certainty. First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 323. F***CK. 55. He defeated everyone from the peak of the early stage to the peak of the mid-stage nascent soul realm. More than 50 people, and all of them are stronger than their cultivation level. He doesn't seem to have used up much energy? This is his true strength, right? Even Chen Hao can't compare to him. Damn, how can he hide his aura so well? Our cultivation levels aren't low, right? I'm a half-step incarnation realm cultivator, but I can't even sense his aura. How can we fight him? Me too. Strange, how can his concealment skills be so good? In the Sky City, Chen Hao and Chen Shui also showed amazing concealment skills. Did he learn it from Chen Hao? A disciple who had entered the Sky City said with a frown. He clearly remembered that in the last month, when the Sky City opened the core palace area, Chen Hao and Chen Shui only revealed their aura when the transmission light pillar appeared. Today's Ling Ihan had displayed such a powerful concealment technique as soon as he appeared. Every opponent was effortlessly defeated in one move at the smallest cost. One had to know that the arena used for the intersect competition did not conceal all auras. This was to let the disciples watching the battle gain the most. Therefore, the disciples who were closest to Ling Ihan were all shocked when they saw his battle. Even Xia Yuyu, Chu Qintian, and the others were shocked. 70 gasps of astonishment could be heard from the crowd. No one had expected Ling Ihan to be so powerful. Moreover, there were still no signs of him being overdrawn. What did this mean? Although Ling Ihan was in the early stage incarnation realm, ants could still kill an elephant. This was a continuous battle. To kill an ant, you would have to stomp your feet and waste some energy, right? Moreover, the opponent was not an ant. There was a difference in cultivation levels, but as a disciple of a ninth-rank sect, who didn't have powerful skills, the power he showed was absolutely terrifying. But looking at the situation, Lung Yihan was likely to kill 100 people. This was a miracle that had never happened before in the cultivation world. How, his concealment skills are amazing. Even if I meet him, I can only sense him when he attacks. Xia Yuyu stared at Lung Yihan, who had once again disappeared from everyone's sight, and finally couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Chen Hao. Yes. This was to completely restrain one's aura and merge it with everything in the world. Before he attacks, unless it's someone 2 levels higher than him, I'm afraid it's really difficult to sense him. However, you don't have to worry. He wouldn't dare to use this kind of concealment technique when facing a powerful opponent. Chen Hao whispered. Perhaps only Chen Hao was not surprised by Lung Yihan's performance. In the past, Lung Yihan's carving skills were 1 or 2 levels higher than Chen Hao's. Now, Chen Hao, who had not practiced carving for a long time, was still inferior to Lung Yihan in this aspect. But Chen Hao didn't care at all, because Lung Yihan's concealment technique was no longer effective against him. It wasn't that Chen Hao could catch him, but that Chen Hao could use the moment Lung Yihan released his aura to unleash his strongest attack. This was the result of Chen Hao's crazy cultivation in the past few months. He had already formed an instinctive reaction to the solitary sword tactic in his subconscious. There was no need to calculate, no need to catch. It was like a passive skill. Sister Lanlan said that your concealment skills are also quite good. Lung Yihan and I cultivate the same kind. It's just that my level is slightly lower than his, Chen Hao said with a slight smile. Did he teach you? No. It's a bit complicated. I'll tell you later. Chen Hao hesitated slightly and didn't tell her about his father and Lung Yihan's master. After stepping into the world of cultivation for so long, Chen Hao's knowledge was far beyond that of an ordinary person. The more he knew, the more Chen Hao felt that his father was unfathomable. He was afraid that it wasn't as simple as the Eastern continent. And this kind of carving technique that integrated everything in the world was a supreme existence that Chen Hao couldn't measure. 100. F***ck, 100 people killed. There are only 50 people left in the Piaomiao sect. Heavens, there are already 16 peak late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators. There are still 40 peak late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators left, and they will definitely get stronger. 8 half-step incarnations and 2 incarnations. Does this guy want to kill all the peak late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators? Impossible. Didn't you notice that his attacks are taking longer and longer? I reckon that a few more would be his limit. On the rostrum, the pavilion master of the Myriad Pill Pavilion was so excited that he couldn't control himself even if he had a calm temperament. He knew that Lung Yihan was strong, and he knew that Lung Yihan had a height that made him look up 45 degrees. But he didn't expect that Lung Yihan's true strength was so strong, especially when he saw all the powerful sect masters on the rostrum gasping in shock. He had the urge to roar to the sky. No one wasn't shocked. At this moment, even Chen Hao's light was completely overshadowed by Lung Yihan. The momentum of the 2 peerless geniuses seemed to have been broken. Lung Yihan became high and mighty, emitting an incomparably bright light. Hold on, hold on, hold on. On the stage, the true essence in Lung Yihan's dantian was on the verge of drying up. But at this moment, he still clenched his teeth and his mind was as calm as water. Only a trace of obsession in his heart resounded in his mind. I have already reached the incarnation realm. If I lose to him again, I'm afraid I'll never be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. I can't lose to him again, I can't. His obsession was burning. At this moment, Lung Yihan was more determined than ever. Faintly, the scene of Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu sitting together appeared in his mind from time to time. Even Lung Yihan himself didn't know what kind of thoughts this was. In his opinion, it was to surpass Chen Hao. In fact, subconsciously, he had already regarded Xia Yuyu as his biggest opponent. This was a strange feeling. It came from another, her, of course. Leng Yihan's persistence was only in terms of physical strength, true essence, and spirit. From the beginning to the end, he didn't show his trump card or killer move. First, this was not the time to expose it. Second, if he exposed it, his consumption would increase exponentially. It was impossible to defeat so many people in a row. When Leng Yihan completed the 100 slaughter, Chen Hao didn't care much. After all, it was within his expectations. But when Leng Yihan defeated another 16 people, Chen Hao's face showed a trace of surprise. He looked at Leng Yihan with a trace of admiration. Chen Hao could clearly feel that Leng Yihan's consumption had reached the point of exhaustion, but he still had no intention of stopping. This kind of perseverance and tenacity was not something an ordinary person could achieve. And if he was careless, he would pay a heavy price. Finally, when the floating mist sect's disciples' expressions became more and more ugly, more and more serious and fearful, the floating mist sect's sect master felt ashamed, and Gu Xing's expression became shocked and aghast. Leng Yihan appeared and disappeared like a ghost and lightly pierced through the last nascent soul realm disciple. He said, "We lost." But at this moment the entire martial arts practice field, except for the 9 arenas, was silent. Everyone stared blankly at the pale-faced but unharmed Leng Yihan. Lost. The 10,000 pill pavilion lost to the floating mist sect. But Leng Yihan won. With his strange and terrifying strength, he won the respect of the hundreds of thousands of people in the martial arts practice field. He defeated the 9th rank floating mist sect's 140 genius disciples by himself, leaving only 10 people. Of the 10 people left, the lowest cultivation was at the half-step incarnation realm. If that was not the case, everyone believed that Leng Yihan would continue to fight. Whoosh! When Leng Yihan floated back to Chen Hao's side like a light breeze, the entire martial arts arena was in an uproar. Leng Yihan looked at Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu's expressions. Although he wanted to say something, he was too weak. His eyes carried a trace of pride and provocation. He glanced at Chen Hao and directly swallowed a large amount of pure spiritual herbs. But Chen Hao's sudden words almost caused this fellow to spit out the spirit medicine that was in his mouth. Always being chased, never being surpassed. You did well this time. Well, it's just not bad. Chen Hao originally didn't want to say anything. After all, the tenacity that Leng Yihan displayed this time was something that even Chen Hao admired in his heart. But this guy was already like this. Why did he come back and give him a provocative look? If he didn't say anything, wouldn't he be too arrogant? What about you? Hurry up and recover. Chen Hao avoided Leng Yihan's eyes and leaned back lazily. Okay, I want to see how many you can win in a row. If you lose, you owe me another promise. Leng Yihan stared at Chen Hao and said, 1 is too little. How about 2? Let's settle it in one go. No. Only 1 at a time. Leng Yihan frowned slightly and said. After saying that, he couldn't take it anymore and directly entered a half-cultivation state. He had just exhausted his energy. Before the next round, he had enough time to recover. While the two were talking, Xia Yuyu looked at them curiously. She already felt that Leng Yihan was strange. But the conversation between the two and Leng Yihan's eyes made her feel even more strange. Xia Yuyu couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. Moreover, listening to the conversation between the two, Xia Yuyu understood that the two seemed to have a deep relationship. The competition was still going on. In the last few rounds of the competition, there was no doubt that every match was of equal strength. In terms of time, it was naturally much slower than the previous 2 days. In the second round, the star-picking sect met another 8th-rank sect, and it was a very strong one. Knowing that he would meet the Sky Sword sect in the third round, Chen Hao was naturally very depressed. Did he do it on purpose? Second update. I have something to do tonight. 2 updates for today. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidien.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 324. 34 people from the 8th rank sect had passed the test. 3 of them were at the half-step to the incarnation stage, and 10 were at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul stage. Just these 13 people alone would consume a lot of Chun Hao's energy. Of course, the premise was that Chun Hao still used the same sword. After thinking for a while, Chun Hao did not make any changes in the end. Furthermore, he did not give Long Yukong, Helian Wuzi, and the others a chance. 34 swords seemed to have easily defeated the 8th rank sect. However, after defeating them, Chun Hao sat down cross-legged and entered a state of cultivation. Before the next round, Chun Hao's freakish recovery ability would allow him to return to his peak state. Long Yukong was very depressed. Up until now, he was the only one from the star-picking sect who hadn't made a move yet. Before coming here, the originally arrogant him had already lowered his head and deliberately put in a few good words with Chun Hao and Helian Wuzi. If it wasn't a sect that was too strong, he asked the 2 of them to go easy on him and give him a chance to drink some soup. After all, in the front, there was Chun Hao, this freak, and in the back, there was Helian Wuzi, this tiger that stood in his way. He was stuck in the middle and didn't have a chance to perform. This was a very depressing thing. However, Chun Hao still did not give him a chance. However, when Chun Hao began to cultivate and recover, he sent a message to Long Yukong, Helian Wuzi, and the others from the Zhaixing sect. Helian Wuzi and the others widened their eyes as if they were dumbfounded. However, everyone, including Long Yukong, had their eyes glittering brightly. Their blood and battle intent were burning fiercely as they locked their gazes in the direction of the Heavenly Sword sect, as if they were on the verge of exploding at any second. No one expected Chun Hao to have such a bold ambition, and it was this ambition that made the Zhaixing sect boil with excitement. When the names of the Zhaixing sect and the Sky Sword sect were called out by the referee, the disciple who was ranked 10th in the Zhaixing sect immediately let out a long howl. It was like a wolf's howl, filled with endless fighting spirit and madness, and rushed into the arena. This caused the crowd, which was already buzzing with discussion due to the clash between the 2 great powers, to widen their eyes. Was this disciple of the star-picking sect crazy? Yes, he was crazy. Even though his cultivation wasn't high, the essence, energy, and spirit of his entire body was like a ball of blazing flames that was filled with lofty sentiments. His expression and posture seemed as if he was about to do something great that would make everyone bow down in admiration and worship. He'd forgotten life and death, forgotten everything, and only fought. This disciple's talent was ordinary. At the peak of the middle nascent soul realm, he barely managed to pass the test. He didn't have the strength of a super genius that leapfrogged above him. He had relied on his own cultivation to meet the requirement. However, such a mediocre disciple had actually defeated 3 Heavenly Sword sect disciples who were at the peak of the early nascent soul stage. Not only that, but they all possessed even stronger attacks than him. Even though he was clearly on the verge of death, he still refused to admit defeat and challenged a 4th opponent. It was as if a small universe had exploded. Although he had lost to the 4th opponent, he had still managed to reduce the 4th opponent's combat prowess. The first one was so crazy, the second one was so crazy, and so was the 5th one. The 5 weakest disciples of the star-picking sect had actually won against 23 Heavenly Sword sect disciples in front of everyone's eyes. When each of them returned, they had all been severely injured and exhausted of their energy. However, their eyes were still filled with fanaticism, as if they were possessed as they stared fixedly at the arena. What kind of concept was it to win against the godlike Heavenly Sword sect? Regardless of whether they succeeded or not, this was the craziest thing they had ever done in their lives. Tantai entered the arena. She was dressed in a long pink dress that accentuated her graceful figure. Her beautiful face was like a lotus flower that had emerged from the mud. She had already reached the peak of the middle nascent soul stage, and the aura she exuded was more terrifying than any of her previous opponents. The battle hadn't even begun, but under the terrifying battle intent, the glow of flames was already faintly rising from her body. However, her entire state of mind was as heavy as a mountain. What she needed to do was to defeat as many opponents as possible. In the first 2 days of the competition, Tantai had already displayed a power that was completely beyond her level, especially when she released the power of the Phoenix inheritance. Even a half-step incarnation could only lose once in front of her. This time, against the high and mighty 9th-rank sect of the cultivation world and the heavenly sword sect that had nearly 20 times more people than them, how many could Tantai win? Although there was no result yet, everyone in the martial arts arena already knew from the momentum of the 5 people in front of the star-picking sect that this time, the star-picking sect, which only had 10 people, would definitely create a more terrifying result than the Myriad Pill Pavilion. Because of Tantai, because of Helian Wuzi, and because of Long Yukong, who hadn't had a chance to fight from the beginning to the end. No one knew what Long Yukong was like, but Helian Wuzi was more terrifying than Tantai. No one doubted this. 3 monstrous geniuses appeared at the same time in the small star-picking sect. They were destined to be stronger than Ling Yihan, who only had 1 monstrous genius, right? There was no fighting, and the first move was the ultimate move. Of course, the so-called ultimate move wasn't a desperate move that consumed a lot of energy. It was a move that could ensure that the opponent would be defeated in a few moves and would consume the least energy. Amidst everyone's shock, Tantai completed the first 10 kills. Using the 7-star secret technique, she defeated 10 Heavenly Sword sect disciples in a row. At this time, Tantai energy was almost exhausted. But everyone knew that Tantai victory would continue because she hadn't released the power of the Phoenix's Nirvana. Phoenix Heavenly Fire, Level 6, the realm of great success. When Tantai released her blazing flames time and time again, defeating her opponents in a miserable manner, the entire martial arts practice field was shocked. No one expected that Tantai had been hiding the power of the Phoenix's Nirvana all this time. In fact, she had indeed been hiding it. When she stepped into the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm, she had already integrated the 6th level of the Phoenix's inheritance and truly stepped into the realm of great success. Unfortunately, even if Tantai controlled the Nirvana Heavenly Fire, she couldn't hold on for long. After defeating the 7th, which was a total of 17, Tantai no longer had any energy left. 6 people defeated 40 people. Amazing, really amazing. This Tantai's ability is probably not even a half-step to the Incarnation Realm Master, right? The power of the Phoenix Heavenly Fire is really too strong. Definitely not a match. The 6th level of the Heavenly Fire is the realm of great success. It's much more terrifying than the realm of great success. Moreover, this is the most terrifying flame in the world. It's enough to burn everything in the world. She's only at the peak of the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm now, but she's integrated to such a high realm. If she ascends to the Incarnation Realm, what will it be like? Just wait and see. There's still Helian Wuzi. No matter what, even if Chun Hao is slightly weaker than Ling Yihan, the star-picking sect's results won't be worse than the Myriad Pill Pavilion. The sect master of the Sky Sword sect, Wu Ruochen, and the others all looked extremely embarrassed. Especially the sect master of the Sky Sword sect. Compared to the sect master of the Faint Mist sect, he was no different. His old face was burning hot. Although out of the 193 disciples of the Sky Sword sect, the 40 that were eliminated were the weakest, and their cultivation levels were not high, the disparity was too great. Moreover, Helian Wuzi, who was stronger than Tantai, had yet to appear. From Helian Wuzi's performance yesterday, it was likely that more people were eliminated. Originally, when he saw that the Faint Mist sect only had 10 people left after being defeated by Lung Yihan, he still despised them in his heart. But now, he was almost certain that the Sky Sword sect wasn't any better. Yi Feishue, who was at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm, was defeated after defeating 4 late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators. Although she couldn't compare to Tantailian, this result was still shocking for the star-picking sect. Then, Helian Wuzi finally appeared. She was wearing a white dress with long sleeves. Her cold, beautiful face exuded an icy aura. She was like a goddess of the moon, attracting the attention of everyone in the martial arts practice field. Clang! The moonlight sword was only a low-grade spirit weapon. The moment it was unsheathed, the sky and earth darkened. Even the light of the scorching sun was covered. Gusts of cold wind swept through the entire ring. Helian Wuzi could totally choose a high-grade spirit weapon, but she didn't. The moonlight sword was a gift that Chen Hao gave her before she stepped into the cultivation world. Moreover, she really liked the aura of the moonlight sword. She wasn't a sword maniac, but she had a sword maniac like Moui. This Helian Wuzi's moves and styles all contain an extremely profound aura. Even this old man is unable to see through it. I really don't know what kind of great opportunity she obtained. Her future achievements won't be inferior to Yu Yu's. The Ling Tian sect leader's mind sensed the battle in the ring and thought to himself. As a leading figure in the Eastern Mainland's 9th grade sect, how sharp was his vision. However, it wasn't just him. Even the sect leaders of all the sects present couldn't see through the mystery of Helian Wuzi's body. This kind of mystery couldn't be felt at all when Helian Wuzi wasn't in a battle state. It would only appear during a battle, and it was very, very weak. However, it was such a weak aura that allowed Helian Wuzi's combat strength to increase by a lot. Especially in terms of recovery ability, it was even more terrifying. From the beginning to the end, Helian Wuzi didn't use any powerful killer moves. She adopted a completely different strategy from Tantailian. Firstly, Helian Wuzi's own realm was stronger than the opponent she was currently facing. Secondly, under the circumstances where Helian Wuzi didn't consume much energy, she had an astonishing recovery speed. In this aspect, even Chen Hao couldn't compare. Therefore, she naturally wouldn't waste her energy. Round moons bloomed in the ring. Helian Wuzi was like a goddess dancing under the cold moonlight. She was neither hot nor cold, but she made her opponents fall in the ring one by one. Her beautiful little face and graceful figure made the young disciples widen their eyes and forget to breathe. In the entire martial arts practice field, other than the 9-sided ring, all the spectators stared blankly at Helian Wuzi in the ring. They silently counted the number of disciples who fell in the ring. First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 325. The number of people increased one by one. Everyone's eyes opened wider and wider. 20, 30, 40 at this moment. Even Chen Hao's eyes widened in shock. His black, deep eyes shone with a bright light as he stared at Helian Wuzi, who was blooming with light and resplendent on the arena. Even he didn't expect Helian Wuzi to be able to do this, and the number was still increasing. Her absolutely beautiful figure was like a dancing fairy. That originally extremely weak, profound aura seemed to have strengthened by a sliver as Helian Wuzi put all of her heart and soul into the battle. But it was this little bit that made Helian Wuzi's recovery ability even more terrifying. She had no distractions, only a trace of obsession. She began to witness the miracles that happened to Chen Hao in the secular world. No one trusted Chen Hao more than she did. So, when Chen Hao said that he wanted everyone to work hard and take down the Sky Sword sect together, she believed more than anyone else that Chen Hao wasn't simply encouraging everyone to achieve the best result. He really wanted to take it down. A small third-grade sect with only 10 people had taken down a ninth-grade sect with 193 genius disciples, a ninth-grade sect that stood at the pinnacle of the cultivation world. This was crazy. Then she would be crazy with him. She was pure and determined. That was to do her best to block the enemies for Chen Hao. She could block the enemies. Cough cough. When Helian Wuzi won 68 matches in a row and eliminated the 108th disciple of the Sky Sword sect, Leng Yihan couldn't help but cough. She's an expert at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. She wouldn't want to solve all the obstacles for you, would she? At this moment there were still 85 people in the Sky Sword sect, and the lowest cultivation was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. When Leng Yihan asked, Xia Yuyu's beautiful eyes also flashed with disbelief as she looked at Chen Hao. If possible, of course she wants to. She's almost at her limit. Below the late nascent soul stage, she can use her advantage in cultivation and strength to defeat them one by one. However, it's not so easy to reach the peak of the late nascent soul stage, Chen Hao said thoughtfully. Sure enough, after a peak late nascent soul stage expert from the Heaven's Sword sect stepped onto the stage, Helian Wuzi, who had been winning by relying on her unhurried attacks that consumed the least amount of energy, finally displayed the only consummate skill she had cultivated, the Heaven-tier consummate skill, Cloud-Cleaving Sword Art. Just like when Tantai Lian released her Nirvana Heavenly Fire at the end, Helian Wuzi's Cloud-Splitting Sword Art, which contained the mysteries of reincarnation, displayed an even more terrifying power. One after another, peak late nascent soul stage experts fell under her sword. If Helian Wuzi's previous performance had shocked people apart from her monstrous recovery ability, then at this moment, what shocked people was her valiant and terrifying battle prowess. The Moonlight Sword brought out the power of the cloud-cleaving sword technique to the extreme. Every sword strike carried the impermanence of the clouds and the unpredictability of the mysteries. When the sword broke through the clouds, it was like a full moon piercing through the layers of dark clouds, leaving the opponent with nowhere to hide. 18. Helian Wuzi tried her best. Her last sword strike consumed all her energy and defeated the 18th peak late nascent soul stage expert. To be exact, it was a draw. When Chen Hao directly stepped onto the stage and carried the seriously injured Helian Wuzi back, the entire martial arts practice field emitted a monstrous buzzing sound, no less than the fluctuation caused by Leng Yihan just now. Helian Wuzi, who was only at the peak late nascent soul stage, had won 86 rounds in a row. 18 of her opponents were all at the peak late nascent soul stage. What kind of concept was this? She couldn't be compared with Leng Yihan, but that was because Helian Wuzi's realm was not as high as Leng Yihan's. If she could advance to the incarnation stage, perhaps even Leng Yihan would be inferior to Helian Wuzi. Moreover, this was a stunning young girl. In the martial arts practice field, shocked cultivators. No one doubted that after this year's intersect competition, Helian Wuzi, Leng Yihan, Chen Hao, and the relatively weaker Tantai Lian would all be famous in the entire eastern continent. They were monstrous geniuses, geniuses that only appeared once in 1,000 years. They were geniuses that couldn't be measured by ordinary thinking at all. The background of the sect, the conditions, they were all fleeting clouds. Such monstrous geniuses, even if they were just itinerant cultivators, were bound to bloom the brightest light. Boom! With a loud sound, everyone's gaze returned to the arena. Long Yukong, who was half a step to the incarnation stage, who had been suppressed for more than 2 days, was like a raging dragon coming out of the abyss under Chen Hao's ambition, the performance of the star-picking sect disciples, and especially the amazing performance of Tantai Lian and Helian Wuzi. He defeated a peak late nascent soul stage expert of the Sky Sword sect in one move. Yes, it was one move. Long Yukong was very clear that he didn't have the monstrous talent of Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian. He could only rely on his strongest attack and the most thunderous means to defeat as many opponents as possible. That was all. Perhaps it was the eruption after being suppressed for too long that made Long Yukong burst out like a small universe, burning and venting, and exerting 150% of his combat strength. He clearly felt that his essence, energy, and spirit had never reached such a state of excitement, fullness, and smoothness. After defeating the fifth master at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, he faintly felt that after this battle, he would truly enter the peak of the half-step incarnation stage. It meant that he would be able to trigger divine punishment and enter the incarnation stage. When the 10th opponent was defeated by him, Long Yukong had also exhausted his energy. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were shining with excitement. He was brought down from the arena by Yi Feishu. He had no regrets in this battle. The star-picking sect, a third-rank sect, eliminated 136 people from the Sky Sword sect, a ninth-rank sect with 9 people. The Sky Sword sect only had 57 people left. Among them, 42 were at the peak late nascent soul stage, 13 were at the peak of the incarnation stage, 1 was at the early stage of the incarnation stage, and 1 was at the peak of the middle stage of the incarnation stage. Of course, the one at the peak of the middle stage of the incarnation stage was Wu Ruochen. Phew! The star-picking sect is too powerful. It's Chen Hao's turn. Do you think Chen Hao will meet Wu Ruochen? It should be difficult. Although there are only 57 people left, they are all above the peak late nascent soul stage. There are also 13 peak late incarnation stage experts and 1 early incarnation stage expert. If he wants to meet Wu Ruochen, he will have to be 30% stronger than Ling Yihan. Otherwise, it's impossible. That's true. Let's see. We can't measure these monsters. It's hard to say until the last moment. What's hard to say? Let alone Wu Ruochen, even if Meng Lang and Chen Hao defeat all the peak late nascent soul stage experts and peak late incarnation stage experts, they won't be able to continue the competition. The 2 people in the 6th group must be Wu Ruochen, Meng Lang, and Chen Hao. How can Chen Hao fight Meng Lang and Wu Ruochen when he is not in his peak state? Therefore, even if Chen Hao is stronger than Ling Yihan, he will stop at the peak of incarnation stage. Amidst the buzzing sounds of discussion of the crowd, Chen Hao flashed up onto the arena, and his extraordinarily handsome and angular face flickered with a wisp of coldness that had never appeared and arrogance that came from his bones. Then, when the referee put down his hand with a hiss, Chen Hao, who had always defeated his opponents with a single sword strike, had actually strangely transformed into a gust of wind this time and completely disappeared from everyone's line of sight. At this moment, everyone had an illusion. Could it be Ling Yihan? He can't be thinking of eliminating the Sky Sword sect, right? Seeing Chen Hao use the Heart Sutra of merging with heaven and earth, Ling Yihan's heart skipped a beat. His eyes widened and he could not help but murmur, "Eliminate the Sky Sword sect?" Xia Yuyu turned to look at Ling Yihan in surprise. "I should have thought of it." Ling Yihan glanced at Xia Yuyu and continued, "Only he would dare to make such an unbelievable decision. Otherwise, the people of the Zhaixing sect would not be so crazy. What a pervert! Unreasonable! Crazy! How? He really wants to eliminate the Sky Sword sect?" Xia Yuyu asked again in disbelief. Of course. If not, why would he change his attack method? Just watch. Can he do it? I don't know. You ask me, but who should I ask? Ling Yihan said and ignored Xia Yuyu. Xia Yuyu frowned slightly and did not ask any more. She was even more certain that Ling Yihan was not normal. Although Xia Yuyu was simple, she was extremely intelligent. With her appearance, talent, and strength, who would disdain to talk to her if she was a normal youth? This was not Xia Yuyu's conceit, but the truth. Boom! In just an instant, a scream of terror, accompanied by a terrifying explosion of energy, exploded from the arena. It can't be right? Everyone's eyeballs almost fell to the ground when they saw the scene in front of them. Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and everyone from the star-picking sect, as well as those who were friends with Chen Hao, felt their hearts skip a beat. Even Ling Yihan, who understood Chen Hao's strength the most, was shocked. He almost jumped up. Crazy, Ling Yihan was speechless and extremely shocked. His opponent had been defeated. He did not even feel the slightest bit of energy fluctuation before he felt a chill in his chest. A treasure sword had pierced through his heart when it was just a few milliseconds away. This feeling of impending death caused him to instantly circulate all the true essence in his body and blast it behind him. The result was that Chen Hao, who had strangely appeared behind him, was sent flying. Everyone's shock and astonishment came from this. They were shocked at what method Chen Hao had used to pierce through his opponent without emitting the slightest bit of energy. They were shocked at how Chen Hao, who had done this, seemed to be completely unprepared. Similarly, there were no energy fluctuations, and he was sent flying by his opponent's critical strike. Only Ling Yihan knew that Chen Hao had not only used heaven and earth to hide his tracks, he had also taken the risk of using a carving technique that required him to restrain all energy to pierce his opponent. Without a doubt, Chen Hao's energy consumption would be close to zero, but he would have to face his opponent's critical strike. Ling Yihan would not dare to use this technique no matter what. But Chen Hao had used it. Chen Hao, who had rolled to his feet, stood up as if nothing had happened. He had used pure physical strength to block his opponent's strike. The consumption was close to zero. Second update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 326. Impossible, impossible. I'll go all out for you. After the Sky Sword Sect cultivator sealed his bleeding chest with his Zhen Yuan, he stared in shock at Chen Hao, who had taken his attack head-on. His Zhen Yuan surged as he rushed towards Chen Hao again. Next. There was no need for Chen Hao to speak. The referee's dignified voice sounded and he waved his hand, sending the disciple out of the stage. Chen Hao's strange attack was without a doubt. If there were no restrictions in the rules of the competition, that guy would have already kicked the bucket. How could he still jump around? However, it was precisely because Chen Hao's attack didn't contain any energy and only pierced through his heart that this situation occurred. But the referee's eyes were bright. While everyone was still immersed in Chen Hao's strange, terrifying, and completely unexpected attack and his freakishly formidable physical resistance, the battle had begun once more. Chen Hao turned into a gust of wind again. Boom, boom, boom. After the second peak late-stage nascent soul stage disciple came up, he directly released his majestic true essence and condensed it into layers of protective qi around his body. He knew that this consumed a lot of energy, but there was no other way. Ling Yihan's previous battle had already made everyone understand that this was the best way to deal with such a terrifying concealment ability. Moreover, this disciple knew that he was no match for Chen Hao. It was just a matter of how many moves he could last and how much energy Chen Hao had to consume. For a full half a minute, Chen Hao didn't make a move, nor did he release any aura. On the other hand, the disciple was extremely nervous. His face was dripping with cold sweat. Although he knew that his life wasn't in danger, he didn't want to be pierced through by a sword. Moreover, if Chen Hao's hand was careless, wouldn't he be finished? Of course, this kind of situation was absolutely impossible. Chen Hao didn't dare and wouldn't do it. Perhaps only this guy who was in the situation and scared out of his wits would think so. 1 minute went by, 2 minutes went by, and then 3 minutes went by. However, Chen Hao still did not make a move. Not only did this make the opponent more and more nervous, but it also made everyone who was paying attention to this match feel suffocated. Could it be that this fellow wants to grind his opponent to death? This thought rose in everyone's mind. However, he was very puzzled. Could it be that Chen Hao's concealment technique did not consume energy? Even if it didn't consume any energy, what was the point of dawdling like this? It was nothing more than saving a bit of energy. Other than the disciples of the star-picking sect, Lung Yihan and Xia Yuyu, no one knew what Chen Hao was up to. With his strength, he could easily defeat his opponent with a single strike. However, Chen Hao did not do so. Lung Yihan, how blends into the world. It's the same concealment technique as you. Doesn't it consume energy? After a full 5 minutes, the disciple's face was covered in cold sweat, but Chen Hao still hadn't appeared. Xia Yuyu couldn't help but ask Ling Yihan again. She directly said blends into the world, to tell Ling Yihan that she already knew about this concealment technique from Chen Hao. No need, Ling Yihan frowned slightly and said. Clearly, Xia Yuyu's words made him realize that the relationship between Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu had reached a certain level. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said blends into the world. What a madman! If he really continues like this, I'm afraid that when the half-step incarnation disciple attacks, he won't even consume any energy. Pooh! At the 6th minute, when everyone felt that they couldn't bear this oppressive and suffocating feeling, Chen Hao's sword light, which was like a poisonous snake's tongue, suddenly appeared. Without any suspense, the sword pierced through the heart. And this disciple was even worse. He didn't even have time to attack before Chen Hao's figure disappeared behind him. It was obvious that Chen Hao had caught the moment when his opponent paused under high tension. No, I can't continue like this. Otherwise, even if I don't consume any true qi, I'll consume a lot of energy. The gains won't make up for the losses. After defeating 2 people, Chen Hao thought to himself, blends into the world, coupled with his powerful physical body, could indeed allow him to easily defeat an expert at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, but his mind also had to be constantly operating. Even if one person only needed a few minutes, it would still take several hours to finish the battle. Obviously, this couldn't go on. As long as I can maintain the speed of true qi consumption and recovery, I just need to do this. In a moment, Chen Hao made his decision. The 3rd, the 4th, originally, they thought that Chen Hao would continue to use this strange method that consumed very little energy, but which made everyone feel rather bored. But on the 3rd round, although Chen Hao had blended into the world, he used his incomparably sharp sword light to directly break through his opponent's layers of protective aura and defeated him in one move. After 5 consecutive rounds, Chen Hao once again showed signs of wasting time. Moreover, as the competition progressed, everyone found that Chen Hao's fighting style seemed to have entered a cycle of 2 methods. One was violent and fierce, the other was extremely strange. As the number of people decreased one by one, the faces of all the disciples of the Sky Sword sect became extremely ugly, or rather, terrified. On the rostrum, the Heavenly Sword sect's sect master's face was filled with boundless shame and anger. Especially when he saw the gazes that everyone was shooting at him from time to time, he wanted nothing more than to find a hole to crawl into. This was 2F** King embarrassing. A dignified 9th rank sect had nearly 200 disciples, but now all of them were at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. Every one of them looked like they were scared out of their wits before the battle even began. As the Sky Sword sect master, how could he endure this? On the other hand, Yuan Tyron's old face was in high spirits, as if it had been filled with chicken blood, blooming with red light. In the contestant area, the veins on Wu Ruochen's face were bulging. His somewhat handsome face was almost distorted at this time. The gaze he looked at Chen Hao with was filled with monstrous anger and disdain. Yes, it was disdain. Although this kind of concealment technique was powerful and had surprised him, it was not enough to attract his attention. He believed that in the face of absolute power, any concealment was futile, especially in the limited area of the arena. He had absolute confidence that he could make Chen Hao unable to hide in an instant. At this moment, He hoped that Chun Hao could defeat all the people of the Sky Sword sect and meet him. The raging flames of war began to rise in his heart, causing the people sitting beside him to look sideways. 42 peak of the late nascent soul stage, and they were getting stronger and stronger. Most of them were at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, but they were all defeated by the terrifying Chun Hao. I've reached the half-step incarnation stage, Chun Hao said in his heart with a cold expression. Chun Hao was very clear that the half-step incarnation stage experts, and the super geniuses of the Sky Sword sect, had an attack power that was definitely beyond their level. If Chun Hao wanted to rely on his physical body to resist, he would definitely not be able to remain unscathed. This was the real beginning of the battle. He had to rely on his true strength to end his opponent. Phew! Chun Hao let out a long breath. When the first half-step incarnation stage expert appeared on the arena, he did not conceal his presence. Dense and surging true essence surged out without the slightest restraint at this moment. His long robe fluttered, his long hair fluttered, and his peerlessly handsome and angular face and pitch-black and deep eyes were like the most dazzling stars in the night sky. They were also like two peerlessly fierce treasured swords that naturally emitted a piercingly cold and arrogant aura that looked down upon the world. This was definitely not the kind of arrogance that made people feel like they were asking for a beating, but a kind of true arrogance in his bones, blood, and heart. At this moment, in the entire arena, countless female disciples and female spectators were staring blankly at Chun Hao. It was hard for their hearts not to flutter. What did it mean to be handsome? What was arrogant? What was dominating the world? This was a kind of feeling that rose naturally from the depths of one's heart, a feeling that came from the inside out. It was not the kind of feeling that Chu Qingtian had, which relied on aura and pressure to make people feel from the outside in. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian's small faces shone with a touch of brilliance and pride. Yes, pride that rose because of Chun Hao. Xia Yuyu's eyes were wide open as she looked at Chun Hao, who was standing proudly on the arena. Her heart was surging with even more excitement and intense joy than Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian's. It had to be said that even though Xia Yuyu had been with Chun Hao for a year and a half, and because of the 9 revolutions heavenly yang earthine art, the two of them had reached a state of telepathy, the one she had interacted with was the most real and simple Chun Hao. She could feel the arrogance in Chun Hao's heart and could understand Chun Hao's character. However, she had never seen how the arrogance hidden in the depths of Chun Hao's bones blossomed. To put it bluntly, she had too little experience with Chun Hao. Hao is so handsome, Xia Yuyu, the #1 genius of the Eastern continent and a goddess in the hearts of countless young disciples, couldn't help but murmur like a little love-struck fool. Although her voice was very soft and everyone was paying attention to the arena, it was still heard by many observant people. Not far away, Chu Qingtian clenched his fists tightly. His terrifying eyes flashed with a trace of coldness and haze. As for Leng Yihan, who was close to Xia Yuyu, he curled his lips. However, his gaze didn't move away from Chun Hao's body. He lightly bit his thin lips. No one knew what he was thinking, but he didn't realize that at this moment, his expression was so feminine. Brat, come. I want to see how you're going to hide. Even if I lose, I'll let you know that our Sky Sword sect isn't something that a clown like you can contend against. Who's the clown? You'll understand very soon. Chun Hao slowly raised his sword and said indifferently. In an instant, his aura had turned into a tranquil little lake. A cool breeze blew, causing ripples to form on the surface of the lake, spreading out in all directions. Third update. Today is the third update. Thank you to the 2 monthly votes and the brother who tipped me. Dark Mountain sat from 6 in the morning until now. The reward is not an egg. Thank you very much. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 327. When Chun Hao's opponent directly used his ultimate move to bombard Chun Hao with sword lights that contained terrifying power, Chun Hao suddenly became like a fish in a small lake. His figure was agile and unpredictable, and he easily weaved through the terrifying sword lights and advanced towards his opponent at a snaking but high speed. Free wave treading steps. Just this mysterious and magical footwork alone had already surprised everyone. What was even more surprising was that Chun Hao's body did not have the slightest bit of Zhen Yuan leaking out except for the aura of perfection like water. It was as if all the Zhen Yuan circulation was under his control, forming a world of its own, circulating endlessly. Only his increasingly plentiful and round spirit made everyone clearly feel a dangerous aura. The disciple who bore the brunt of Chun Hao's strange and terrifying approach was shocked in his heart, but at the same time, he also understood Chun Hao's intention. Close combat. He had already seen Chun Hao's terrifying sword, so how could he dare to tangle with Chun Hao? Without any hesitation, he crazily condensed the Zhen Yuan around his body. He did not expect to defeat Chun Hao, but only hoped to injure Chun Hao a little. Seeing that Chun Hao was approaching his best attack range, he roared and used his strongest ultimate move. Chi! 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 More than 100 sword lights condensed from his life's cultivation suddenly descended like a plague of locusts, densely meeting Chun Hao. The time, distance, and angle were grasped perfectly. Even if everyone knew that they could not really do anything to Chun Hao, they still could not help but secretly praise in their hearts. The half-step incarnation of a ninth-grade sect is indeed incomparable to an ordinary sect. I'm afraid that this move will injure Chun Hao a little. Seeing that Chun Hao could not avoid it, many people secretly said in their hearts. However, right at this moment, the five-element sword in Chun Hao's hand suddenly emitted a dazzling white light that directly drowned out the entire stage. Soon after, a ding-ding-ding sound of dense and terrifying sword light clashing resounded within the crowd. When everyone's vision recovered, the disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect had already been sent flying with a spurt of blood spurting from his chest. Light attribute true essence? He actually comprehended the true essence of the light attribute? Seeing this scene, many people sucked in a breath of cold air. The true essence of light and darkness was one of the most difficult attributes to comprehend out of the five elements. Truth was not energy. After reaching the golden core realm, all cultivators would more or less be able to control the five elements and the energy derived from them. However, they could only control energy. There were very few who could comprehend the truth, especially the truth of light, darkness, and lightning. The true essence of the light element has concealed his figure. Under the mysterious footwork, the opponent is unable to lock onto his aura. This means that even if the opponent's ultimate move is under complete control, it will lose its target. How many trump cards does this kid have? I'm really a waste of my position as the sect master. Yuan Tairan stared at the unscathed Chun Hao in the arena and said excitedly and a little gloomily. It had to be said that from the moment Chun Hao stepped into the sect until now, although Yuan Tairan had already decided to train him with all his might, it seemed that the star-picking sect had really not given anything. As for him, as the sect leader, his understanding of Chun Hao was even more limited. The second, the third, the fourth, one by one, the half-step incarnation experts became stronger and stronger. However, without exception, they were all eliminated by Chun Hao. When it came to the 11th person, what surprised everyone was that Chun Hao actually began to use his powerful concealment technique again, as if he was stalling for time. It took him a full 20 minutes to eliminate the 11th person. Then, the 12th and 13th person were still concealment techniques, and the time taken was even longer. When the last half-step incarnation realm disciple was eliminated, only Wu Ruochen and Meng Lang were left of the Heavenly Sword sect of nearly 200 people. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Chun Hao. Even the referee was no exception. They were both shocked and doubtful. Would he continue to fight? Chun Hao didn't need to answer. His gaze that was as sharp as a sword, his aura that was chilly, and his battle intent that soared into the sky was the best answer. Next. The referee took a deep breath, and his loud voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire martial arts practice field. At this moment, if there were still people who did not know what Chun Hao was going to do, then they were really pigs. However, it was precisely because they knew that everyone's gazes towards Chun Hao were filled with incomparable shock and disbelief. In a group competition between sects, and in a situation where the weak would go from strength to strength, what kind of concept was it to challenge an incarnation realm expert? In particular, when they thought of the madness of the star-picking sect disciples, and the way Chun Hao fought until now, they were all even more shocked. Without a doubt, before the battle with the Heavenly Sword sect, the star-picking sect had already made this decision, or it could be said that Chun Hao had made this decision. The decision to challenge the Heavenly Sword sect. Hiss, the sound of people sucking in cold air resounded in every corner of the martial arts practice field. No one could describe how shocked they were at this moment. The star-picking sect, a third-grade sect with only 10 people, wanted to challenge the high and mighty ninth-grade sect with nearly 200 people. What kind of concept was this? Could he succeed? This was the question that appeared in everyone's mind. Apart from a few people, the answer was almost unanimous. Even if Chun Hao could defeat Meng Lang, who was at the early stage of the incarnation realm, he would not be able to shake Wu Ruochen, who was at the peak of the middle stage of the incarnation realm. But regardless of whether Chun Hao succeeded or not, he would be the most dazzling existence in this competition. He used his combat strength, talent, potential, and courage that surpassed his cultivation level by 10 times or even 100 times to conquer everyone. He was challenging the legend. He was challenging all the low-level sects, including the 8th grade sections. For hundreds of years, no sect or person had been able to accomplish this feat who could shake the high and mighty 9th grade sect. The second expert of the Heavenly Sword sect, Meng Lang, took a deep breath. His eyes flashed with a touch of coldness, and even his body trembled slightly. This trembling was very complicated. It contained the excitement of not having a chance to fight for a few days, but also contained the fear of Chun Hao, and a little bit of frustration. Whether he won or lost, he was a little unhappy. Even if he won, he would not be able to defeat Chun Hao, who was not in peak condition. How could he not be frustrated? Anyone could say that Chun Hao was defeated in an exhausted state after defeating dozens of people. If he lost, there was no need to talk about it. But at this point, he could only fight. Because this was a matter of the highest honor of the Heavenly Sword sect. If Chun Hao really took down the Heavenly Sword sect, it would undoubtedly be the greatest shame of the Heavenly Sword sect. Whoosh! Meng Lang stepped onto the arena under the gaze of tens of thousands of people. As the second genius of the Heavenly Sword sect, he cut off all negative emotions the moment he stepped onto the arena. You are very courageous and very strong. But you dare to challenge the dignity of the Heavenly Sword sect with just this point? You are overestimating yourself. Humph, your victory will end here. I, Meng Lang, will let you understand what is called the absolute gap in strength. Not to mention the current you, even if you are in peak condition, you will still be unable to withstand a single blow from me, Meng Lang. Clang. Boom. As soon as Meng Lang's cold voice fell, he took the lead to unsheath his sword. At the same time, the vigorous true origin and terrifying pressure that symbolized the early stage of the incarnation realm were completely released at this moment. Although the half-step incarnation realm and the incarnation realm were only one step apart, the difference was like heaven and earth. Everyone knew this point, especially after Meng Lang completely released his aura, which made everyone understand Meng Lang's strength. Coupled with his tall and mighty figure, He was like an unshakable war god in front of Chen Hao. The terrifying pressure caused the entire arena to set off gusts of wind. Everyone felt Meng Lang's terrifying aura and looked at Chen Hao. The entire martial arts practice field was silent. Even the disciples who were fighting in the other 9 arenas could not help but look over. Kaba, suddenly, Chen Hao, whose expression was as solemn as a mountain, trembled slightly under the raging wind caused by the aura. His entire body actually emitted the crisp sound of bones colliding. This sound was very soft, but it carried a huge penetrating force that clearly entered everyone's ears. Along with the sound of this sound, the blood, tendons, and bones in Chen Hao's body instantly condensed into one. The essence, energy, and spirit in his body bloomed with a bang, like a pillar of light that shot straight into the sky. There was still no fluctuation of true origin leaking out, but it completely blocked Meng Lang's terrifying aura within a radius of 30 meters around him. Chen Hao did not speak, but slowly raised his sword and pointed at Meng Lang. There was not even the slightest fluctuation of emotion on his handsome and cold face. Bang! Hiss! At this moment, the instant the referee put down his hand, Meng Lang suddenly stomped his feet, and a dull rumble erupted. 2 deep pits suddenly appeared on the incomparably hard ground under his feet, and Meng Lang's entire body was like an arrow that had left the bow. What was even more shocking was that Meng Lang's figure seemed to have completely disappeared from everyone's sight. His entire body and the sword in his hand condensed into a 30-meter-long golden sword. One with the sword. It was not an ordinary one with the sword, but a one with the sword that only an expert of the incarnation realm could perform. The person had transformed into a sword, and the essence, energy, spirit, and true origin had completely condensed into one with the sword. It was obvious that Meng Lang had raised his strength to the limit when he attacked. He wanted to directly suppress Chen Hao in the most violent manner. So strong! An expert of the incarnation realm is indeed not something that a half-step incarnation realm expert can compare to. This Meng Lang is in existence second only to Wu Ruochen in the Sky Sword sect. The one with the sword at the incarnation realm is like an extension of his arm, and the combat strength he possesses is absolutely terrifying. It seems that Meng Lang does not want to give Chen Hao any chance to perform. Can Chen Hao block it? At this moment, countless cultivators' minds were filled with amazement and anticipation. Everyone held their breaths and locked onto Chen Hao's figure. Good timing! As he stared at the terrifying sword light that was swiftly approaching him and completely enveloping him, Chen Hao's pupils suddenly constricted, and he let out a clear shout. Rumble! The aura around his body was finally released for the first time, and it was released without the slightest restraint. Rolling true origin gushed out, and the terrifying aura instantly swept out and rushed toward Meng Lang, who was coming at him. Chen Hao originally wanted to end the battle quickly with Meng Lang. If he really wanted to fight, Meng Lang was not a half-step to the incarnation realm. It was absolutely impossible for him to rely on concealment to recover his true origin. Meng Lang directly pushed himself to the limit without any probing, which was exactly what Chen Hao wanted. First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 328. Rumble. The figures of the two had yet to meet, but under the terrifying aura of the two, the entire arena rumbled like thunder, and the momentum was extremely shocking. Clang, 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 boom, boom, boom. The dense and terrifying sound of metal clashing, accompanied by terrifying explosions, caused a storm. In an instant, the powerful barrier of the arena seemed to be torn apart, and the two figures quickly crossed each other. Humph, that's all you got. Today, I'll make you understand that in front of my incarnation realm strength, your nascent soul realm strength is nothing. Meng Lang stood in the air. The instant confrontation made him clearly feel that although Chen Hao's strength was strong, it was much weaker than his. And this was under the condition that he did not use his ultimate move. Although he knew that Chen Hao must have an ultimate move, how could a small star-picking sect be stronger than his Sky Sword sect's ultimate move? Is that so? The Incarnation Realm is only SOSO. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Come out with your ultimate move, I don't want to waste my strength on you. Chen Hao finally spoke. He was even more arrogant than Meng Lang. His cold expression and words seemed to be telling everyone, "You're nothing but a clown. My goal is to topple your Heavenly Sword sect. My final opponent is Wu Ruochen, so don't try to jump around. You're courting death." Meng Lang snorted coldly and suddenly took a step forward. With a boom, his aura, which had been raised to the limit, erupted like a volcano at this moment. At the same time, a mysterious aura suddenly rose and filled the entire arena in the blink of an eye. Buzz, buzz. What made Chen Hao slightly surprised was that Meng Lang's left hand actually condensed talisman symbols and sent them into the large sword in his right hand. Every talisman symbol that fused into the sword caused the treasured sword to hum intensely and its aura to soar at an extremely terrifying speed. At this moment, although Chen Hao was very strong and wanted to see how strong this guy was when he condensed his aura to the peak, he did not do so. There were more powerful opponents waiting for him, and he had no reason to waste his strength on Meng Lang here. Lose for me. A cold shout suddenly sounded out from Chen Hao's mouth. At the same time, a peerlessly fierce and terrifying fluctuation appeared abruptly as Chen Hao slashed out from afar. To everyone's surprise, Chen Hao's sword strike only emitted a trace of a horrifying force at the beginning, but after it was executed, it seemed to be child's play instead, and it didn't emit any fluctuations. Moreover, the crowd was already flabbergasted. Even if Chen Hao had used some kind of ultimate move, he should have approached his opponent before using it. Who would use an ultimate move from several hundred meters away? However, after an instant, Meng Lang, who had yet to condense to the peak, let out a shocking roar and hurriedly made his move. Only then did everyone see a sword light. The sword light was extremely sharp and carried a terrifying whirlpool, as if it could devour everything. Suddenly, it collided with Meng Lang's ultimate move that had not been condensed to its peak state. Great success in the profound mysteries of space? On the rostrum, countless experts sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Yuan Tyran was a little surprised. Chen Hao had the profound mysteries of space. When Chen Hao released his aura without restraint in the star-picking sect, Yuan Tyran had sensed it. However, he did not expect Chen Hao to be able to use the profound mysteries of space in such a magical way on his ultimate move. This kind of fusion could not be done without a strong soul power. Boom! Despicable, shameless! Accompanied by Meng Lang's angry and unwilling roar, his body flew out like a kite with a broken string. While he was still in the air, he spat out a stream of blood. Hiss! At this moment, Chen Hao's figure flashed and caught up with Meng Lang. Without giving Meng Lang any time to react, Chen Hao's sword slashed across his neck, leaving a sure-death bloody mark. Clean and efficient, without the slightest hesitation. It could not be helped. This was the restriction of the rules. Chen Hao's sword strike just now had once again revealed one of his trump cards, and had directly consumed a large amount of true essence. But even so, it was only able to destroy Meng Lang's ultimate move that had not been condensed to the limit, and injure him, but it was unable to cause him to lose his combat strength. If he wanted to end this battle, he could only do this symbolically. What a joke! Do you think I have to wait for you to condense your ultimate move? After doing all this, Chen Hao said loudly. As he spoke, he floated a few hundred feet away and stood proudly. The rules of the competition stated that once the competition started, no spiritual medicine was allowed. To recover, one could only rely on one's own recovery ability. Up until now, Chern Hao had been recovering in the state of being one with the universe when he was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage and half-step incarnation stage. In particular, he had deliberately delayed the last 3 half-step incarnations to recover his true essence to the peak state. However, against Meng Lang's ultimate move, he had consumed 10% of his true essence. Apart from that, the most serious consumption was his essence, qi, and spirit. Next, wait. Before the referee could finish announcing the next contestant, a cold, dignified, and angry voice suddenly interrupted the referee. At this moment, everyone looked toward the rostrum. The Sky Sword sect leader's face was terrifyingly dark as he stared straight at Chern Hao. "Brat, you dare to violate the rules of the competition and secretly use spiritual medicine to recover your true essence? How audacious! You're looking down on the 10 immortal sects and deserve to die." Crash! Master Sky Sword's words immediately ignited everyone who was still immersed in shock. Even the sect masters of the other 9 rank 9 sects looked at him with a trace of astonishment. However, the Yuan sect leader, who had the most authority, hesitated for a moment and didn't say anything for some reason. Xiaoling Feng wanted to say something, but he didn't. Instead, he looked toward the star-seizing sect leader, Yuan Tyran. "Sect leader Bai, what do you mean? Our star-seizing sect is only a small third-rank sect. How dare we look down on the 10 immortal sects? Our disciples wouldn't do such a thing that violates the rules of the competition. Without any evidence, I hope sect leader Bai will be careful with your words." Yuan Tyran stood up. His heart was filled with rage. He really wanted to F***ck this old man's 18 generations of ancestors. However, in the face of a high and mighty 9th-rank sect, he could only forcefully suppress the rage in his heart and speak righteously. "Haha, be careful with my words? Yuan Tyran, you don't dare, but that doesn't mean your disciples don't dare. Everyone, since I dare to say it, I'm naturally certain. Not only Chern Hao, but Ling Yihan of the Myriad Pill Pavilion must be the same." "That's right." At this moment, the Floating Mist sect leader said, "Everyone, think about it. These 2 brats used the same concealment technique that even we couldn't see through to disappear from our sight. This old man admits that these 2 people are rare geniuses, but you can imagine, not to mention them, even in the cultivation world for nearly 1,000 years, which of the top geniuses has this kind of recovery ability? This is absolutely impossible." "That's right. Especially Chern Hao, this brat, who is even more arrogant. You should have seen it. Before he fought with Meng Lang, he deliberately delayed for 2 hours, entangling with 3 half-step incarnation realm experts, allowing himself to recover to his peak state." The sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect continued, "This is blatantly looking down on our 10 immortal sects. Brother Een, and everyone else, this is not as simple as breaking the rules. This crime is punishable by death." This sudden turn of events caused the entire martial arts practice field to buzz with discussion. Especially after hearing the words of the 2 great sect leaders, everyone's gaze turned to Chern Hao and Ling Yihan, who was sitting in the contestant seats. It was obvious that at this time, almost everyone was beginning to suspect something. This couldn't be blamed on anyone else. Chern Hao and Ling Yihan's performance was too exaggerated. Although Helian Wuzi was also exaggerated, she didn't have any weakness and was always under everyone's attention. However, Chern Hao and Ling Yihan were different. The 2 of them were even more exaggerated than Helian Wuzi and used powerful concealment technique. Originally, they didn't suspect anything because they didn't think in that direction. After all, just because they couldn't sense it didn't mean that the experts and judges on the platform couldn't. But now, they knew that even the sect leaders of the 9th-rank sects couldn't sense the 2's auras. This made people suspicious. After all, people weren't made of iron. How could they have such powerful recovery ability? "Humph. You're just guessing. What proof do you have? Everything depends on the evidence." Although my myriad pill pavilion is only a seventh-rank sect, we're not to be bullied. Moreover, why would our Ling Ihan use such underhanded means? The myriad pill pavilion leader, who didn't have any thoughts, suddenly stood up and said with a cold and arrogant expression, especially when he looked at the sect leaders of the Sky Sword sect and the Faint Mist sect, his eyes were shining with intense contempt and anger. When he spoke of Ling Ihan, he was extremely conceited. Chen Hao also disdains to use such methods. Both of them are true geniuses that only appear once in 1,000 years in the Eastern continent. It's fine if some people can't do it themselves, but they still want to slander them with the heart of a villain. My myriad pill pavilion will be the first to disagree. So what if you're the high and mighty Sky Sword sect and the Faint Mist sect? What a joke. It's just the two of them who damaged your dignity. After a slight pause, the myriad pill pavilion leader seemed to have thought of something and continued. The myriad pill pavilion leader's words directly ignited the entire martial arts practice field, including the sect leaders on the platform, who all looked at him with shock. No one thought that the myriad pill pavilion leader, who was only a seventh-rank sect, would be so strong, so violent and so arrogant. Yes, it was arrogance. Such a blatant tit-for-tat, and directly pointed out that the sect leaders of the two ninth-rank sects were the heart of a villain. How could this not shock people? They were high and mighty ninth-rank sects that no one had been able to shake for hundreds of years. They weren't something that low-level sects below eighth-rank sects could compare to. This was because they controlled the life and death of the entire Eastern continent's cultivation world. If they decided to abolish a sect, even if it was an eighth-rank sect, they could directly uproot it and completely erase it from the cultivation world. Second update. Maybe many of you didn't see Wushan's chapter, so I'll say it again. In the future, the update time will be around 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Today is the first time I've changed it, so there will be 2 updates. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m., it should be 4 updates. Wushan will continue writing. Thank you to the brothers and sisters who donated and voted. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 329. Well said, Brother Gu. As 2 of the 10 immortal Dao sects leaders, you represent the entire Eastern continent's cultivation world. But you can't slander us just because we have a genius who's stronger than you. Our Zhaixing sect is only a third-rank sect. At worst, we'll be destroyed by you. I, Yuan Tairan, am not to be trifled with, and neither are the Grand Elders of the Zhaixing sect. Without evidence, don't even think about slandering us. I've already sent out the news. If you have the guts, kill the Grand Elders of the Zhaixing sect as well. Ha ha. What was even more unexpected was that Yuan Tairan, who had been suppressing his anger, exploded at the provocation of the myriad pill pavilion's pavilion master. His arrogant laughter was filled with unwavering determination and arrogance, as if he was going to fight to the death. His words were even more direct than the myriad pill pavilion's sect masters. He also told everyone that he had already sent back the news. What did this mean? Yuan Tairan and all the disciples of the Zhaixing sect, and even the Zhaixing sect, which was millions of miles away, could be destroyed. However, the Grand Elders of the Zhaixing sect could not be killed by them. Not to mention the 6 Grand Elders of the Zhaixing sect, even if one of them escaped, it would be enough to turn a 9th-rank sect upside down. This was the reason why the cultivation world did not dare to destroy the other side, no matter how great the hatred was. This was not to say that the Grand Elder of the Star-Picking sect was very powerful, but if such an expert were to hide in the dark and ignore all the rules of the cultivation world, then what would be the point of the disciples of the 9th-rank sects? They would be in danger of being killed at any moment. There were precedents in the world of cultivation for something like this. Good. I didn't think that a 7th-rank sect and a 3rd-rank sect would dare to be so arrogant. This isn't just provoking the Sky Sword sect and the Floating Mist sect, it's blatantly looking down on the 10 immortal Tao sects. Evidence? They're hiding their tracks, and their true essence is limitless. One person challenging 100 people is evidence. Brother Ian and everyone else, if you don't say anything, I'll take it as a yes. The Floating Mist sect's sect master said angrily as he looked at the Sky Sword sect master. The two of them were second only to the Origin sect in the 10 immortal Tao sect. Even the Origin sect master could not suppress them. What did they have to fear? Come over here. Brat, come here. If you tell me the truth, I can spare your souls. The sect leaders of the Floating Mist sect and the Sky Sword sect made their moves at the same time. Two extremely terrifying auras enveloped Chen Hao, who had a cold expression on his face, and Ling Yihan, who was in the contestant seats. The terrifying power caused the heavens and earth to change color. The two large hands contained a power that caused everyone to be terrified. At this moment, both Ling Yihan and Chen Hao felt that they were completely locked down. That terrifying aura seemed to have used all the energy in the world to bind the two of them. They couldn't even move. At this moment, Xia Yuyu cried out in fright. Her beautiful little face under the veil was deathly pale. At this moment, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian were almost suffocating. No matter what, they never thought that such a situation would occur. They couldn't stop it, they couldn't resist it, they could only despair. He hated himself for being too weak. The Star-Seizing sect was too weak. The disciples of the Star-Seizing sect and the Myriad Pill Pavilion were also deathly pale. However, everyone's expressions showed that they were clenching their teeth in this crisis. Screams resounded throughout the martial arts arena. Chaos, chaos, extreme chaos. No one thought that the situation would develop to such an uncontrollable state. How dare you? Open your dog eyes and see what this is. Whoosh. At this moment, the voice of the Myriad Pill Pavilion's pavilion master suddenly resounded throughout the martial arts arena. At the same time, a resplendent light screen rose up, blooming with light brighter than the sun. A mysterious aura instantly enveloped a radius of hundreds of miles. All the clamor and screams seemed to be swallowed up, causing the heavens and earth to fall into silence. This mysterious aura completely surpassed their understanding. Everyone, including the two shameless sect leaders who had used magical powers to capture Chen Hao and Ling Yihan, looked at the void with fear. A token that was only the size of a palm, but it was emitting a mysterious aura, was floating in the air. Countless people in the martial arts practice field stared blankly at it. They didn't know what it meant because they didn't know what it meant at all. But the sect leader of the Yuan Gate, who had planned to watch the show, was dumbfounded. His eyes were as wide as copper bells, and his body was trembling slightly. Yuan Tairan, who was about to protect Chen Hao, and Xiaoling Feng, who had made his choice, were stunned. Besides shock, there was also a trace of uncontrollable joy. The sect leaders of the other sects were also dumbfounded. Their faces shone with incomparable shock. The two arrogant fellows from the Sky Sword sect and the Floating Mist sect who wanted to capture Chen Hao and Ling Yihan were even more stunned. Their expressions were filled with extreme fear. Their bodies were trembling like sieves. They had completely lost the demeanor of a dignified 9th-grade sect. They were so scared that they almost peed their pants. I guessed it right. What a pity. Since they are her people, it won't be good for me to recruit them. Both of their soul powers are abnormally strong. The sect leaders of the Heaven's Sword sect and the Misty sect, in particular, even stuffed their heads into their pants. They were trembling with fear as they broke out in cold sweat. At this moment, how could they not understand what was going on? Of course, in their minds, the celestial venerable token was given to the pavilion master of the Myriad Pill Pavilion by the celestial venerable. Although there were still doubts, this was the only reasonable explanation. Otherwise, How could the pavilion master of the myriad pill pavilion be qualified to receive the celestial venerable token? Humph! The graceful celestial venerable snorted lightly. However, everyone, especially those who had ulterior motives, trembled and broke out in cold sweat. The sect leader of the Origin sect was even more so. As the sect leader of the top 10 immortal Tao sects, he seemed to be uninvolved in such a huge commotion during the intersect competition. Furthermore, the celestial venerable had seen it with her own eyes. No matter what, he would leave a bad impression and even be held responsible. The immortal Tao sects of the Eastern continent have really opened my eyes. Sect leader Een, you are really competent as the sect leader of the top immortal Tao sect, huh? Sect leader Bai, sect leader Gu, you are also good. As the sect leaders of 9th rank sects, you are really broad-minded. It seems like this immortal is too insignificant. I should have invited the palace master to personally host your intersect competition. Don't you think so? The celestial venerable's sarcastic words silenced the entire martial arts practice field. The three important figures who had been pointed out lowered their heads and did not dare to breathe loudly. Humph! This immortal will personally evaluate the sects in this intersect competition. After the intersect competition is over, I want the 10 immortal Tao sects to give me a satisfactory explanation. Of course, the so-called 10 immortal Tao sects may not necessarily be the current ones. Crash! The celestial venerable's last sentence finally caused an uproar in the martial arts practice field. Not necessarily the current ones? What did that mean? The sect leaders of the Yuan Gate, Sky Sword sect, and Floating Mist sect were extremely frightened. Keep the token. Hiss! The pavilion master of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, who was at a loss, suddenly heard the celestial venerable's words. He hurriedly bowed and sincerely received the celestial venerable token with both hands. His expression was filled with excitement and gratitude. When the nameless old man had given him the token, he had told him that he could not use it unless it was absolutely necessary. He could not use the token to seek benefits for the sect. Today, it was indeed absolutely necessary, especially when it concerned Ling Yihan's life. How could he still have scruples? Moreover, he knew that this opportunity was definitely a good thing for the Myriad Pill Pavilion. First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 330. The reason was simple. Once he took out the token, it would definitely cause a sensation in the entire cultivation world of the Eastern continent. Even the 9th rank sects would have to be courteous to the Myriad Pill Pavilion from now on. What did this mean? It meant that the Myriad Pill Pavilion would be extremely popular. With a period of accumulation and development, they would definitely be able to reach the height of a 9th rank sect, or even surpass it. But the female immortal supremacy who suddenly appeared took away his token. How was he going to explain this to the nameless old man? He didn't know what status the nameless old man had in the Wuji Immortal Palace, but to be able to give out the immortal supremacy token, it proved that he was definitely not simple. At least not lower than the immortal supremacy in front of him. But he didn't dare to ask for it. Fortunately, the immortal supremacy didn't intend to confiscate it, which made him relieved. Let the competition continue. The female immortal supremacy slowly floated to the main seat in the middle of the rostrum. After sitting down cross-legged, she said faintly, "Strength is everything. This immortal will not be partial to anyone, nor will I bury anyone. There are indeed a few good geniuses in this intersect competition. Although there is still a big gap between you and the other regions, it is very rare for you to be able to grow to such a level in the Eastern continent. Work hard." Phew! Xia Yuyu patted her full and bulging chest. She, who was nervous and frightened to the extreme, finally breathed a long sigh of relief at this moment. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian were the same. The disciples of the star-picking sect and the myriad pill pavilion also walked out from the state of near despair, suffocation, and anger. They looked at each other, and everyone's face revealed a touch of joy after being reborn. Faintly, they clearly felt that their souls and states of mind seemed to have a trace of enlightenment, and suddenly became clear. Next, the referee's magnificent voice suddenly rang out. Chen Hao took a deep breath, and his angular face flickered with a wisp of unprecedented coldness. No one knew what had happened in Chen Hao's body just now. No one knew that Chen Hao, who had no confidence when he met Wu Ruochen earlier, now had absolute confidence. Pressure. The casual attack of the Heavenly Sword Sect's sect master had exerted enormous pressure on him. Boundless anger had caused him to sink into madness. The seven-colored nascent soul, blood, meridians, muscles, shackles, and even every cell in his dantian, as well as his essence, energy, spirit, and soul, all of them had instantly fallen into a frenzy. A frenzy that seemed to want to pierce through heaven and earth was operating madly. Unfortunately, under the restriction of the Heavenly Sword Sect Master's peerless divine ability, he was unable to unleash even the slightest bit of it. However, it was precisely because of this irresistible pressure that all the power in Chen Hao's body surged and burned. His body had unknowingly become his cauldron, causing all the energy in his body to explode. This feeling was similar to when he had faced the powerful Xiao Jihan for the first time in the Xiao family. Chen Hao had undergone a metamorphosis in just a few seconds. There was no change in his realm. Boom! Wu Ruochen also took a deep breath and flew violently toward the arena. He was extremely frustrated, and the degree of frustration was not inferior to Chen Hao's at all. Originally, when he saw that Chen Hao had defeated Meng Lang, his battle intent had already soared to the peak. That was exactly the result he wanted. He wanted to use his absolute power to viciously crush Chen Hao. He wanted everyone to understand that he, Wu Ruochen, was not inferior to anyone. So what if he was the only one left in the Heavenly Sword Sect? He was the true number one genius of the Heavenly Sword Sect. He was the one who could ultimately turn the tide. At that time, it could be said that this brother's essence, energy, and battle intent had all reached the peak. He was like a badass with the surname Gao and the name Chao. However, his idiotic sect master had suddenly put on a show which directly caused this brother to fall into a daze. It would have been fine if that show had succeeded. However, not only had it failed, but he had also been smashed on the head by the female celestial supremacy. Although he had not been scared to the point of shitting his pants, his entire body was smelly. This brother had already been scared silly. How could he still have any battle intent left? Fortunately, the female celestial supremacy's words before the start of the competition had reignited his battle intent. Strength was everything. As long as he was strong, why would he need to consider the Heavenly Sword Sect? Only when he was strong would he be truly strong. The aura of the peak of the midstage of the embodiment realm instantly filled the entire arena. The terrifying pressure and soaring battle intent caused everyone in the arena to once again lock their eyes on the arena where Chen Hao and Wu Ruochen were. Without a doubt, this battle would be the most intense battle since the beginning. Moreover, it would definitely be a battle between the top 20 individuals in advance. It seemed that Chen Hao, who had already been chosen by the celestial supremacy, could defeat the super genius Wu Ruochen, who was more than a level higher than him. The buzzing sounds of discussion instantly increased in intensity and quickly spread to every corner of the martial arts practice field. This year's intersect competition's top 20 individuals were already very clear. The sixth group was Chen Hao and Wu Ruochen. No one had expected that Chen Hao would be able to make it to this stage. After all, Chen Hao's strength lay in his potential, not his strength. Originally, everyone thought that the two people in the sixth group would be Wu Ruochen and Meng Lang. But now, Chern Hao had already created a miracle that was beyond everyone's imagination. He had won consecutively and easily defeated Meng Liang, who was in the early stage of the embodiment realm, in his exhausted state. Now, he was facing Wu Ruochen, who had the qualifications to become a young master and was recognized by everyone as being in the top 4. Could Chern Hao, who was only at the peak of the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm, continue to create miracles? On the arena, Chern Hao was as still as a mountain. In the face of Wu Ruochen's terrifying pressure and fighting spirit, his chiseled face did not change in the slightest, except for the incomparably fierce look in his eyes. Clang! Clang! 2 clear sounds of unsheathing rang out almost at the same time. Ah! But it was also at this moment that the entire arena suddenly burst into waves of astonishment. Even Chu Qingtian, Xia Yuyu, and Gu Xing revealed a trace of astonishment. Their expressions were rather strange. Wu Ruochen actually uses a saber? This is too unexpected? No one would have thought that Wu Ruochen, who had always used a sword, would turn into a saber when facing Chern Hao. The 2-meter-long silver saber was slightly blue and emitted a cold and terrifying aura. Mysterious and exquisite runes covered the hilt and body of the saber. The long groove that ran through half of the saber was actually dark red, like solidified blood. It emitted a strong murderous and bloody aura. In Wu Ruochen's hand, it made a buzzing sound, like a thirsty beast that could not wait to kill and drink blood. Just from its appearance alone, everyone knew that this saber was definitely a top-grade spiritual weapon. You're very strong. Until you defeated Meng Lang, I had never taken you seriously. I admit that I underestimated you. You're only in the nascent soul realm, yet you've forced me to reveal my hidden weapon. You should be proud of yourself. Boom. Following Wu Ruochen's words, a cold, domineering, and majestic saber intent soared at a terrifying speed. The saber intent seemed to want to split the sky and cut the earth. Just the saber intent alone made people feel as if they were facing a saber blade. Saber intent in the mastery of the way of the saber? Hiss! Hiss! Gasps could be heard in the entire martial arts practice field. If Wu Ruochen's revelation that he was a saber wielder was shocking, then the saber intent realm that he displayed now shocked everyone. Even Chu Qingtian frowned slightly. A saber wielder was as famous as a swordsman. A swordsman was extremely fierce and domineering. Anything that stood in his way would be cut in half, as if he was cutting vegetables. Wu Ruochen's saber intent realm had reached the mastery of the way of the saber. The mastery of the way of the saber was between the 4th heaven and the 6th heaven. Wu Ruochen's saber intent was obviously in the initial stage of the great mastery, which was the peak of the 4th heaven. Even so, everyone was shocked. This was because no one had heard of anyone in the incarnation realm who could cultivate the way of the saber or the way of the sword to the 4th heaven, at least in the eastern mainland. Chern Hao stared at Wu Ruochen, whose aura was still soaring, and his lips curled into a devilish smile. He said calmly, 4th heaven of the way of the saber? Your aura is not bad. Unfortunately, you have no hope of suppressing me with this. It's just like how a shameless person wants to slander me. It's meaningless. Crash! Everyone in the martial arts practice field who was paying attention to Chern Hao was shocked. Even Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian, who were familiar with Chern Hao, were surprised. Did Chern Hao really say this? In everyone's eyes, Chern Hao was a man of few words. He was only cold and had shocking strength. Yet, at this moment, he had suddenly spoken. Furthermore, his words were so sharp and arrogant, as if he was looking down on the formidable sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect. No one expected Chern Hao to be like this. There was a reason why Chern Hao was like this. First, he was clear about Wu Ruochen's purpose in directly exposing his identity as a saber wielder and saying these words. Whether it was an expert in the way of the saber or the way of the sword, they all paid attention to aura, especially during a peak confrontation. If one could suppress the opponent in terms of aura, it would undoubtedly be the beginning of victory. How could Chen Hao let him have his way? Even if Wu Ruochen couldn't suppress him, he couldn't let his confidence soar, right? Besides, since he wanted to challenge the Sky Sword sect, he had to do it thoroughly. Especially after seeing the ugly face of the Sky Sword sect master, Chen Hao felt even more disdain, anger, and even anger. Anyway, these two guys were trash that Chen Hao had a strong desire to kill. Chen Hao naturally wanted to vent his anger at this moment. And just as Chen Hao said these words, something even more shocking happened. An incomparably sharp sword intent rose from his body without any warning. In an instant, it filled the entire arena. What was extremely shocking was that the saber intent and sword intent emitted by the two people actually collided in the void. In an instant, the entire arena emitted a crackling sound. The peak of the fourth heavenly level of sword intent? This Chen Hao is actually at the fourth heavenly level of the way of the sword? Countless voices filled with disbelief instantly resounded throughout the arena. Only a few people who knew Chen Hao well knew that Chen Hao was a swordsman. However, no one knew that he was at the peak of the fourth heavenly level of the way of the sword. This was the realm that he had broken through to after going through heaven's punishment. Even Ling Yihan, who knew Chen Hao's combat strength best, was a little surprised. Second update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 331. Looking at Chen Hao, who was like an unsheathed sword, Wu Ruochen's expression changed slightly. Immediately, a trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, "A swordsman at the peak of the fourth heaven. Very good. Then let's fight. I'd like to see how a swordsman at the middle stage of the nascent soul realm like you can compete with me." Whoosh! Wu Ruochen snorted coldly. His vital essence, which had already been gathered to its peak, suddenly surged out. He took a step forward, covering a distance of 100 feet. Amidst the buzzing and trembling of the treasured saber, he slashed a terrifying saber at Chen Hao. The terrifying saber chi condensed into a roaring dragon, violently enveloping Chen Hao. Chi. At the same time, Chen Hao also stabbed out with his sword. It was still a seemingly simple sword move, but the dazzling sword light, driven by the fierce sword comprehension, accurately pierced the head of the saber chi dragon, directly exploding the entire arena. The fierceness, violence, and momentum of this sword completely surpassed Wu Ruochen's at the middle stage of the incarnation realm. Humph! Wu Ruochen's eyes narrowed. He didn't think that the first move would have any effect, but it was so easily broken by Chen Hao, which surprised him. Looking at the fierce sword light condensed and did not dissipate, he once again urged the vigorous and majestic vital essence to meet it violently. Boom! Ding! 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 In an instant, the two of them entered into a close combat situation. The sound of metal clashing rang out, and the sword comprehension and saber comprehension raged. Just the aftermath alone destroyed the entire arena. Even the powerful inhibition had terrifying cracked. The masters guarding the arena constantly sent out energy to repair it in a slightly panicked manner. Everyone in the martial arts practice field looked at the scene in the ring, and their expressions became sluggish. It's too terrifying. Any saber chi or sword light can kill me. I can't see it clearly at all. Senior brother, who has the upper hand? Chen Hao is really powerful, especially his attainments in the Tao of the Sword. It's even more terrifying. He is obviously inferior to Wu Ruochen in terms of absolute strength, but he has completely suppressed Wu Ruochen. The master called senior brother stared at the figure in the arena like a flash of lightning and said with shock. Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, Xia Yuyu, Ling Yihan, and the other experts who were basically guaranteed to enter the top 20 were all staring at the arena. Other than these 4 people who couldn't help but feel an increasingly strong desire to fight, the others had already lost the will to compete with the two just by looking at their current performance. In the face of absolute power, all techniques are useless. What was the use of Wu Ruochen hiding so deeply? Chu Qingtian snorted in his heart. Encountering either of them will be a difficult battle, especially Chen Hao. Gu Xing's eyes shone brightly, but his expression did not change in the slightest. The episode that happened because of their sect master made him, who was a loner but had his own firm beliefs and principles, feel ashamed and disdainful. At that moment, although his battle intent was rising, he did not have the heart to fight. He had already made his decision. Even if he was a direct descendant of the Floating Mist sect, he still made his decision. Time passed by minute. The more Wu Ruochen fought, the more frustrated he became. Chen Hao's every attack seemed to hit him where it hurt. Even though he clearly had the advantage in terms of strength, he was still suppressed to the point that he could not breathe. No, if this drags on, I won't be able to turn the tables. Wu Ruochen instantly made a decision. At this point, if he still did not want to reveal his strongest move, he would face defeat. Being unable to unleash his aura and being completely suppressed by his opponent was the greatest taboo for a swordsman. Roar. With a loud roar, Wu Ruochen suddenly bit the tip of his tongue. The vital essence in his body immediately circulated wildly. Carrying the most powerful saber will, he unleashed a powerful attack regardless of the cost. At the same time, his body suddenly flew backward. Boom! After Chen Hao broke Wu Ruochen's attack with his sword, he did not immediately chase after him. Instead, he stared at Wu Ruochen from afar, his eyes releasing an even stronger battle intent. Chen Hao, let's settle this in one move. I didn't expect you to be so strong that you forced me to use my final trump card. Wu Ruochen stared at Chen Hao from a distance of 1,000 feet and said coldly. As he spoke, his aura suddenly soared at a terrifying speed. The energy of heaven and earth in the entire arena began to churn at this moment. This scene made everyone hold their breath. Anyone could see that Wu Ruochen was about to use his strongest move, his final trump card. As for the motionless Chen Hao, his expression at this moment was very strange. This was because his aura did not soar at all, and he did not look like he was about to condense his ultimate move. What was even stranger was that it felt like he was struggling with something and was even a little hesitant. Forget it, Chen Hao was indeed hesitating. Of course, this was only a matter of a moment. If he was slow, it would be too late. Whoosh! Without any warning, Chen Hao's figure flashed and closed the distance of 1,000 feet. At this time, the crowd caught sight of Chen Hao, who was flying quickly in the void. He made a thrusting posture toward Wu Ruochen, who was still 9,000 feet away. His whole body was surrounded by dimensional vortexes, so no one could sense the aura of his sword. However, everyone was surprised. At such a long distance, did Chen Hao want to interrupt his ultimate move like Meng Lang did in the previous battle? In the instant of the electric sparks, Chen Hao's figure flashed again and moved another 1,000 feet. His thrusting posture had also advanced half a foot. There were only 8,000 feet left. Wu Ruochen, who was condensing his strongest attack, frantically urged the vital essence in his body to circulate in a mysterious and strange route. Seeing Chen Hao approaching quickly, it was impossible for him not to be nervous. After all, Meng Lang was a lesson learned from his mistakes. It was also because of this lesson that Wu Ruochen deliberately pulled the distance to 3,000 feet. In his opinion, 3,000 feet was enough for him to condense his strongest ultimate move. 7,000 feet, 6,000 feet, 5,000 feet, 4,000 feet. Chen Hao's figure flashed rhythmically. In the same instant, in the same 1,000 feet, his thrusting posture would advance a little every time he appeared. In fact, in the entire martial arts arena, except for the masters on the rostrum, The majority of the people in the arena could not see clearly and did not know what was going on. However, Chu Qingtian, Xia Yuyu, Gu Xing, and Ling Yihan were able to see. Moreover, the expressions of the four people were obviously very different. Chu Qingtian looked at Chen Hao with disdain and ridicule. Gu Xing only frowned. Xia Yuyu and Ling Yihan, on the other hand, were a little worried, because, judging from Wu Ruoqin's aura, it was obvious that when Chen Hao was just 1,000 feet away from Wu Ruoqin, he would be able to condense his ultimate move. In other words, Chen Hao would not be able to stop him in time. What did that mean? It meant that Chen Hao, who wanted to take advantage of the situation, could only take Wu Ruoqin's strongest attack without condensing his ultimate move. 3,000 feet. Wu Ruoqin was also calculating Chen Hao's time and speed. At this moment, he was about to succeed. His expression shone with extreme disdain and excitement. He knew that he would definitely be the winner of this battle, and Chen Hao, this idiot, would definitely be seriously injured. Suddenly, just when everyone thought that Chen Hao would appear 2,000 feet away from Wu Ruoqin, a sharp sword light that contained a terrifying whirlpool that seemed to want to swallow the world appeared within 10 feet of Wu Ruoqin without warning. Boom! 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 Accompanied by a series of exclamations, an unbelievable scene appeared. Wu Ruoqin, whose aura was already so powerful that it shocked everyone, was actually in an even worse state than Meng Lang back then. He didn't even have time to react before Chen Hao, who was one with the sword, broke through the layers of true essence barriers and directly pierced through his stomach. What was even more unexpected was that after Chen Hao withdrew his sword, his figure followed like a shadow and caught up to Wu Ruoqin, who was flying backwards. He stomped on Wu Ruoqin's chest, and like 1,000 pounds of gold, he landed on the arena that was full of sword marks with a bang. Idiot, do you really think my speed is that little? A cold, mocking, and arrogant voice suddenly sounded. Everyone stared blankly at Chen Hao, who was stepping on Wu Ruoqin's pig head, whose stomach and mouth were spurting blood like a dead pig. They could not describe their feelings. The entire martial arts practice field was silent and sluggish. Those who did not know what was going on only saw the result. As for those who clearly saw the lightning sparks in that instant, they were all horrified and moved. No one expected Chen Hao to use his intelligence to deceive everyone's eyes and senses in such a pinnacle battle. Of course, this was also the reason why Chen Hao did not display his true speed. In that short moment of sparks, Chen Hao completed an extremely precise plan, which made Wu Ruoqin think that Chen Hao was retarded. In his excitement, he did not even manage to react as Meng Lang did, and was stepped on by Chen Hao. How is this possible? How is this possible? Chu Qingtian, who was waiting for Chen Hao to make a fool of himself, finally opened his eyes wide. His heart was filled with boundless shock. Not only was he shocked by Chen Hao's despicable and shameless actions, but he was even more shocked by Chen Hao's speed. Yes, it was speed. It had to be said that Chen Hao was able to deceive everyone's eyes not because of how intelligent he was. It was because he hid it too well. No one expected Chen Hao's speed to reach such an unbelievable level. After all, Chen Hao's speed had already reached the level of an expert in the incarnation realm when he was a few hundred meters ahead. How could it suddenly increase by 3 times? What a pervert! Ling Yihan, who was originally filled with worry, murmured with a smile that even he himself didn't realize was so charming. Yeah, he's really a pervert. Hearing Ling Yihan's slightly changed voice, Xia Yuyu looked at Ling Yihan. This look made Xia Yuyu's eyes widen. She shivered on behalf of Chen Hao and murmured the same words. However, only the little girl herself knew who she was referring to as a pervert. What an interesting little guy. On the rostrum, the female immortal stared at Chen Hao. Her eyes did not hide her admiration for Chen Hao as she thought to herself. Even she did not expect such an ending. Third update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 332. Chunhao. Chenhao wins. Star-picking sect wins. After being stunned for more than 10 seconds, the referee finally realized his duty. With a trembling voice, he announced the result of the match. Wu Ruochen, who looked like a dead pig, was taken back by the Sky Sword sect's disciples. The hole in his stomach, the bloody pig head, and the fact that Chen Hao had purposely stepped on him so hard that he no longer resembled a human, made the disciples of the Sky Sword sect wish they could find a hole to crawl into. The buzzing sounds of discussion were extremely ear-piercing. However, the members of the dignified Rank 9 sect, who used to be arrogant, did not even dare to let out a fart at this moment. When Chen Hao jumped down from the ring and flew to the contestant area, the star-picking sect's disciples cheered excitedly. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian hugged each other excitedly, their faces flushed red. Xia Lanlan, Duan Yufei, and the others who were sitting with Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian also looked happy, but they did not dare to shout out loud. The last 3 rounds of the sect tournament became boring. When the sky was completely dark, the curtains finally came to an end. The star-picking sect's momentum skyrocketed as they obtained a complete victory. The top 20 contestants were determined on the spot based on the performance of all the disciples. For example, Zhao Yuanqing and the others who had never had the chance to fight were only nominated, but no one dared to challenge them in their group. Each group had 2 people. Among the top 10 ninth-rank sects, except for the 2 groups that Chen Hao and Ling Yihan were in, where only 1 person from the Sky Sword sect and the Piao Miao sect made it into the top 20, the other 8 ninth-rank sects all had 2 people. 18 of the top 20 spots were occupied. Even so, it was the first time in hundreds of years that a non-ninth grade sect's disciple entered the top 20. These 2 people were Ling Yihan and Chen Hao. Ling Yihan led the 10,000 Pill Pavilion and broke the unshakable legend of the Sky Sword sect. Chen Hao led the star-picking sect and created a legend. The legend of 10 people from a 3rd-grade sect defeating nearly 200 people from a 9th-grade sect. That night, countless cultivators in Dongxian City gathered in restaurants, tea-houses, and other places of various sizes. Countless cultivators also swarmed into merchant guilds of various sizes to participate in the bets for the top 20. Chen Hao and Ling Yihan, who had not been favored, had improved tremendously. This was especially so for Chen Hao, who was second only to Chu Qintian and Xia Yu. Even Gu Xing was pushed aside under Chen Hao. Ling Yihan, on the other hand, was at the same level as Gu Xing and Wu Ruochen. Of course, this was because Ling Yihan was valued by the female immortal master. Otherwise, although Ling Yihan's performance was terrifying, it was only in terms of recovery and endurance. The absolute combat power he displayed was still far from Wu Ruochen and Chen Hao's. After returning to the monastery, Yuan Tairan, the 4 grand elders, and all the disciples gathered in the main hall. Naturally, they could not avoid praising Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and all the other star-picking sect disciples. It had to be said that Yuan Tairan was very satisfied with everyone's performance today. Moreover, Yuan Tairan and the 4 grand elders could clearly feel that there was a cohesive force in everyone's bodies that the star-picking sect disciples had never had before. Alright, you can all go back. After this intersect competition, I believe that you have all learned a lot. Use these 3 days to consolidate it. If you want to go out for a walk, don't worry. The Immortal Master has already spoken, and I believe that they will not dare to act recklessly. Chen Hao, you stay. I will take you to the Myriad Pill Pavilion. Yes, Sect Master. Hearing the Sect Master's words, the others left one after another. Indeed, as the Sect Master had said, all of them had gained a lot. The top 20 competition had nothing to do with them. Only Chen Hao would participate. But that was still 3 days later. These 3 days were undoubtedly the best time for them to consolidate their understanding. Sect Master, I won't go, right? After everyone left, Chun Hao said with some difficulty, I have to compete in 3 days. I have to cultivate quickly. I gained a lot today. We will be back soon. We won't delay your cultivation. Although the Myriad Pill Pavilion's Pavilion Master was implicated today, he clearly helped us at the time. Moreover, he didn't do it because of the star-picking sect, but because of your relationship with Lung Yihan. Of course, he also saw your potential and talent. Although the Immortal Master suppressed it in the end, we should still pay him a visit and thank him. Besides, Yuan Tyran paused for a moment, then stopped hiding and continued, today we completely broke off relations with the Sky Sword sect. Although it's nothing for now, it's hard to guarantee that there won't be any problems in the future. The Sky Sword sect is a 9th-rank sect. Even if the Immortal Master reprimanded them, their foundation and strength are still there. They won't be wiped out. Our star-picking sect situation will be very difficult in the future. Moreover, the Myriad Pill Pavilion has the Immortal Master's token and is a peak 7th-rank sect. It's very possible. Do you understand what I mean? All right, Chun Hao replied. Since Yuan Tyran had said so, no matter how unwilling Chun Hao was, he could only go. After the two of them arrived at the courtyard of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, although they were personally welcomed by the Myriad Pill Pavilion's Pavilion Master, they only sat for a short while before taking their leave. Firstly, Chun Hao wanted to cultivate, and secondly, there were too many people who came to visit. Yuan Tyran couldn't help but sigh. The snobbishness of the cultivation world was definitely greater than that of the secular world. Fortunately, the Myriad Pill Pavilion's Pavilion Master was clearly much more enthusiastic towards Yuan Tyran and Chun Hao, especially Chun Hao. Even the sect masters present were full of praise for Chun Hao. Chun Hao responded calmly, neither servile nor overbearing. He didn't have the slightest bit of pride and arrogance that a young man should have. This made everyone praise Chun Hao even more in their hearts. Little did they know that this guy had enjoyed countless praises in his previous life. This little bit of praise was really nothing. He accepted it as a matter of course. Fortunately for Chun Hao, Lung Yihan had already entered the state of cultivation. After hearing about Lung Yihan's situation from Xia Yuyu today, Chun Hao felt like avoiding him like a snake or scorpion. If he could avoid him, he really didn't want to see him. Chun Hao, let's go to the Ling Tian sect again. To Chun Hao's surprise, Yuan Tyran suddenly said this when the two of them had just walked out of the Myriad Pill Pavilion's courtyard. Cough cough. Sect Master, I'm not going to the Ling Tian sect. Chun Hao actually refused directly. What's wrong? The Ling Tian sect has helped you a lot. Previously, because of Fan Fong, they came out once. Today, if it weren't for the Pavilion Master's token, Xiaoling Feng would have helped you. He helped me? Did he? Chun Hao was slightly stunned. Of course. Why would I lie to you? I'm not afraid that you'll laugh at me. When the Heaven Sword sect accused you, I was indeed timid. Even if I wanted to come out, I didn't dare to speak so decisively. This was because I knew that once there was a conflict, it could mean the star-picking sect's annihilation. I couldn't joke about the countless lives and thousands of years of foundation of the star-picking sect. The reason I dared to do that was because Sect Master Xia hinted that he would support me. No matter what, you should pay him a visit, right? No. He should be the one paying me a visit. Sect Master, forgive me for not being able to comply. Chun Hao frowned slightly and pondered for a while, but he still said resolutely. Obviously, there was no room for negotiation. What he said shocked Yuan Tyran so much that his jaw almost dropped to the ground. Let the sect master of a 9th-grade sect pay him a visit? Cough cough. Don't tell me you have a grudge with the Ling Tian sect? Or are you prejudiced against Sect Master Xia? It's not a grudge. I'm definitely prejudiced. Sect Master, there's no room for discussion. If you want to go, you can go by yourself. I'll go back first. Gasp. After Chun Hao finished speaking, he turned into a stream of light and left quickly, leaving behind a stunned Yuan Tairan. How could this brat have anything to do with the sect master of the Ling Tian sect? How could he be prejudiced against him? Yuan Tairan shook his head and could not figure it out. He could only pay him a visit himself. Chun Hao had just appeared at the entrance of the star-picking sect's courtyard when he heard the affectionate call. It almost made Chun Hao jump. You? Why are you here? Looking at the figure in front of him, Chun Hao asked in surprise. This was not a clone but the real Xia Yu. Why, don't you welcome me? It's not just Yu who's here, hee. What do you mean? Chun Hao was slightly stunned and immediately released his powerful perception. However, he could not capture any aura. To be exact, the entire courtyard hall was enveloped by a mysterious aura that blocked all probing auras. You'll find out later. Let's go. Xia Yu took the initiative and directly pulled Chun Hao to the courtyard hall. Chun Hao frowned slightly and his expression became a little awkward. Could it be that the old man really came to visit him? When he thought of this, Chun Hao's expression changed instantly. F***ck, I don't care if you're Yu's grandfather. You dared to look down on me back then, so don't expect me to be nice to you today. If it wasn't for Yu being reasonable, considerate, gentle, obedient, and lovable, I'm not Chun Hao if I don't ruthlessly trample on you back. Although it seemed like he still did not have the ability to trample on you, there would be a day when he would. This was something that Chun Hao firmly believed. Just as Chun Hao and Xia Yu were about to enter the courtyard hall, Yuan Tairan also hurried back. The instant he saw Chun Hao, this old man's face was filled with astonishment and confusion. He transmitted, "Brat, no matter what, a grand 9th rank sect master has brought his precious granddaughter here. Can't you give him some face? A 3rd rank sect, a 9th rank sect, personally coming to visit us. Yuan Tairan, don't have that face. Yu, quickly come in." At the same time, Yuan Tairan said to Xia Yu in an intimate manner. "Greetings, sect master Yuan." Xia Yu smiled and bowed. Good, brother Xia. I was just about to pay my respects to you, but I didn't expect you to come instead. How can I not feel embarrassed?" When Yuan Tairan saw the door open, he hastily rushed in and cupped his fists. Chun Hao and Xia Yu also walked in and saw the 4 elders respectfully standing in front of Xia Lingfeng. There's no need to be polite. Yu, this little girl, just had to drag this old man here, haha. Xia Lingfeng stroked his beard and laughed. As he spoke, his gaze swept over Chun Hao who was being pulled by Xia Yu. Although his old face did not show anything, his heart was tangled. This stinking brat, a grand 9th rank sect master, specially came here. I've already made way for you by several streets, and you're still giving me attitude? If it weren't for Yu's face, if it weren't for the ranking competition in 3 days, 4th update. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Com to vote. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 334. Aren't you going to greet sect leader Xia? Yuan Tairan said to Chun Hao awkwardly. Chun Hao frowned. He didn't even look at Xia Lingfeng. He didn't bend his waist. Instead, he raised his head slightly. He straightened his neck and cupped his fists. He didn't even say a word. Even so, he was still grumbling in his heart. If it wasn't for Yu's sake, why would I bow to you? Cough cough. Brother Xia, this boy has always been like this. Please don't lower yourself to his level. It's fine, it's fine. Although Xia Lingfeng said so, he looked at Chun Hao and said, "Boy, it seems like you're still holding a grudge against the old man because of what happened back then? What's past is past. What's the point of talking about it? Chen Hao said coldly when he heard Xia Lingfeng's words. Xia Yuyu smiled sweetly and did not interrupt. As for Yuan Tairan and the three elders, they were all stunned. Although Yuan Tairan had guessed that Chen Hao had a grudge with the Ling Tian sect, he did not expect it to be with Xia Lingfeng. One was in the sky while the other was on the ground. How could they have crossed paths? All right. Then, old man won't be long-winded with you. You just have to put yourself in his shoes. You're really stubborn. Also, the old man came today because of you. Don't think that he's giving in. Brother Yuan, the old man has just told the three elders about the ranking competition in 3 days. This is the information that the Ling Tian sect found. Take it. That's all. Brother Yuan, the old man will leave first. This, Yuyu, come with me, Xia Lingfeng said as he pulled Xia Yuyu and disappeared before everyone's eyes. Cough cough. Boy, what's going on? Yuan Tairan looked at Chen Hao and asked. His intuition told him that it must have something to do with Xia Yuyu. Especially when Xia Lingfeng said that he was doing it because of Yuyu, it shocked Yuan Tairan even more. What did that mean? It was because the relationship between Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu was very, very good. Thinking about how Xia Yuyu had been sitting with Chen Hao for the past few days, he was even more certain. Also, he knew about the conflict between Chen Hao and Wu Ruochen. It was just that he didn't dare to think too deeply about it. Sect Master, what's there to ask about such trivial matters? Chen Hao said. It's such a trivial matter, yet you're giving the dignified sect leader of a 9th-rank sect a hard time? Tell me what happened. Do you and Xia Yuyu also have that kind of relationship? Ahem. I'm going to cultivate. Kid, take this with you. It should be information on the top 20. Take a good look. Seeing that Chen Hao was about to slip away, Yuan Tairan tossed a book of information that Xia Lingfeng had left behind to Chen Hao. Do you guys think that Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu are together? After Chen Hao left, Yuan Tairan looked at the three elders and asked. I think so. That day when Chen Hao and Wu Ruochen had a conflict, Xia Yuyu's behavior clearly showed that she has an unusual relationship with Chen Hao. Moreover, the two of them have been sitting together for the past few days. And just now, did you see how intimate the two of them were? They even did it in front of her grandfather. Yes, it should be. No, it must be. When the Ling Tian sect stood up for Chen Hao, I was a little surprised. Although Chen Hao's innate talent was strong, it was only ordinary compared to the genius disciples of 9th-rank sects. They shouldn't have paid so much attention to him just because he saved Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei. Now I understand that it's all because of Xia Yuyu. It's not just because of Xia Yuyu now. Nobody doesn't pay attention to the innate talent that Chen Hao displayed. I'm afraid he'll reach a height that we can't imagine in the future. Otherwise, Xia Lingfeng, the dignified sect leader of a 9th-rank sect, wouldn't give in to a little guy like him. He wouldn't use his precious granddaughter to speak. You must know that Chu Qingtian from the Origin sect and Wu Ruochen from the Heaven Sword sect came to propose marriage, but he didn't agree. It seems like it's true. Moreover, Xia Lingfeng didn't object? Haha. I can't believe that Chen Hao's peach blossom game is so high. This Xia Yuyu is really good. She's innocent, pure, and cute. Her words and actions are casual, and she doesn't hide her reservations at all. She dared to be so intimate with Chen Hao in front of her grandfather and us, but she didn't hide her feelings for Chen Hao at all. This is great, Yuan Tairan said excitedly as he stroked his beard. Phew, after entering the cultivation room, Chen Hao had a comfortable and proud smile on his face as he let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally gotten back some interest for being able to drive that old man away in anger. Chen Hao's divine will poured into the information jade slip that Xia Lingfeng had left behind. It contained detailed information about Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, Wu Ruochen, and the other disciples of the rank 9 sects who had made it into the top 20. This information was undoubtedly impossible for the Zhai Xing sect to find out, because it contained the secret techniques and hidden abilities that each person might have cultivated. Although it was impossible to find out all the trump cards of each person, it still listed the secret techniques that they might have cultivated, as well as the characteristics and powers of the secret technique. Moreover, what surprised Chen Hao was that every time Xiaoling Feng introduced a secret technique, he would simulate the aura and mysteries of the technique in Chen Hao's mind. He would also specifically explain how to deal with an absolute difference in strength. Although this old man didn't mention Chen Hao's name from the beginning to the end, he was very dedicated to Chen Hao. Apart from that, he also specifically reminded him of the dangers of the top 20 ranking competition, especially the Yuan Gate, Sky Sword sect, and Floating Mist sect's possible actions against Chen Hao. This goodwill was more sincere than him personally coming over just now. Forget it, I can't go overboard. After all, he is Yu Yu's grandfather, and the main culprit is Yu Yu's father. If he hadn't stopped me, I would have been finished. Chen Hao thought to himself after he finished reading the information in the jade slip. Then, he said, the most important thing is that Chu Qingtian actually asked me to give up. It seems like even he can't estimate Chu Qingtian's hidden abilities. Also, the Yuan Gate's essence energy empowerment. I want to see how strong Chu Qingtian is. The essence energy empowerment can at most raise that fellow to the peak of the avatar stage, the same level as Yu, right? As for the lack of rules, I prefer it. After taking a deep breath, Chen Hao waved his sword in his mind and cut off all distracting thoughts. He immediately immersed himself in his cultivation. Yuan Gate, Chu Qingtian's cultivation room. Qingtian, it's up to you this time. You have already reached the peak of the middle stage of the avatar stage. I will use 100 years of my cultivation to help you this time, and it will definitely raise you to the peak of the late stage. Furthermore, it won't affect your future cultivation. That immortal supremacy has already expressed his dissatisfaction with our Yuan Gate, and it's because of Ling Yihan and Chen Hao. The top 20 ranking competition is a competition that truly concerns your own destiny. It's not like the group competition where there are restrictions. Therefore, you have to remember that a dead genius is no longer a genius. When you display your true abilities, I believe that immortal supremacy will change. Don't worry, sect leader. I, Chu Qingtian, will never allow anyone to surpass me. As long as they have the ability to meet me, I guarantee that they will die. Not to mention that sect leader will help me raise my cultivation to the peak of the late stage. Even now, I am confident. You just have to deal with the judge, and don't interfere too early. That's good. I'll take your confidence as absolute. Haha. I believe that we are not the only ones who will deal with the judge. Sky Sword sect and Floating Mist sect are even worse off than us. Let's begin. Floating Mist sect. The same scene happened in Gu Xing's cultivation room. However, the Floating Mist sect's sect leader did not forcefully raise Gu Xing's cultivation level, but what he said was more or less the same as the Yuan Gate leader. A dead genius was no longer a genius. As long as he could defeat Chen Hao and Ling Yihan as much as possible in the top 20 ranking competition before the immortal supremacy announces, it would be even better if he could kill them. This would more or less solve the sex crisis. This was something that the Yuan Gate leader had thought of, and so had he. It was just that they did not have the Yuan Gate's method of forcefully raising their disciples' cultivation level, so he could only let Gu Xing try his best. After all, Chen Hao's combat strength had already surpassed Wu Ruochen's. Although it was because of his wisdom that he won by a fluke, it had to be said that Chen Hao was very strong. Whether Gu Xing could defeat him was still a question. However, he did not know that Gu Xing, who had always been a man of few words, shook his head lightly after he left, and a look of disdain flashed across his cold face. Sky Sword Sect's side courtyard, Wu Ruochen's cultivation room. Wu Ruochen, who was severely injured by Chen Hao, was now naked, and his body was emitting a crimson light, as if he was wrapped in layers of flames. This aura was clearly the holy healing medicine, the Nirvana pill. After a full hour, when the Nirvana pill's medicinal power was completely refined by Wu Ruochen, and his wounds were completely healed, a dense aura suddenly rose from his body. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the entire cultivation room surged wildly, and it lasted for a full 2 hours before this dense aura disappeared. Wu Ruochen slowly opened his eyes, and 2 sharp rays of light shone out. His face was filled with extreme surprise, and he said, "Late-stage incarnation realm. Haha, the Nirvana pill is indeed a holy healing medicine. Not only did it completely heal my injuries, but it also allowed me to break through my limits. My strength has probably increased by a full 40%. It's enough, it's enough." As he spoke, Wu Ruochen's face began to distort strangely, and it became extremely gloomy and filled with monstrous anger. "Chen Hao, I will make you pay for the humiliation today 100 times, 1,000 times. If you didn't use despicable means, how could you be my opponent? And now I've improved. Ha ha. There are no rules in the top 20. If I, Wu Ruochen, don't smash you into pieces, I swear I'm not human." 3 days later, the fiery red sun emitted thousands of rays of golden light and poured down on the incomparably huge martial arts practice field. At this moment, the martial arts practice field, which was hundreds of miles in radius, was already filled with a sea of people. The buzzing sounds of discussion and disputes were incessant, and they were like flies that filled every corner of the martial arts practice field. The competition had not yet started, and the audience had already started to fight. Obviously, the topic of the dispute was who would be the 4 great young masters this year, and what the ranking of the 4 great young masters was, and so on, the questions that everyone was most concerned about. First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 335. It Can't Be? The Peak of the Late Stage of the Embodiment Realm. What a powerful aura! Chu Qingtian attracted everyone's attention the moment he arrived at the martial arts practice field. All of them widened their eyes in shock. Obviously, no one expected Chu Qingtian, who was still at the peak of the middle stage of the embodiment realm 3 days ago, to be at the peak of the late stage of the embodiment realm now. I knew that the Yuan Gate would do this, but I didn't expect Chu Qingtian to be able to raise his cultivation by an entire level. That's impressive. It seems like he has a greater chance of getting first place. Xia Yuyu shouldn't be his match. The sect leader of the rank 9 sect was different from the rest. The Yuan Gate's origin essence empowerment technique was top secret. However, they knew about it. They had guessed that the sect leader of the Yuan Gate would sacrifice his cultivation to help Chu Qingtian under Xia Yuyu's threat. However, no one expected Chu Qingtian to be able to raise his cultivation from the peak of the middle stage to the peak of the late stage. Xiaoling Feng looked at Chu Qingtian with a hint of depression and helplessness. He was the one who understood Yuyu's true strength the most. Before Chu Qingtian appeared, he still had a glimmer of hope. However, it seemed like Xia Yuyu wasn't Chu Qingtian's match. Although Xia Yuyu's talent was high, and her battle prowess was also extremely powerful, without the advantage of strength, she was undoubtedly lacking in battle experience. Moreover, Xia Yuyu had never experienced any life or death situations since she was young. Xiaoling Feng couldn't be sure about her ability to withstand pressure and counterattack in adversity. He actually reached the peak of the late stage of the embodiment realm. How, if you meet him, you have to be extra careful. Yuyu knows that you won't listen to grandfather, but it's better to be careful. Xia Yuyu transmitted her voice to Chen Hao with a hint of worry on her beautiful face. In 3 days, Chen Hao didn't produce any miracles. His cultivation didn't increase at all. These fellows are all powerful. Chu Qingtian has unleashed the essence energy empowerment technique to the extreme, and the heavily injured Wu Ruochen has advanced to the middle stage of the embodiment realm. This is getting more and more interesting, Chen Hao said with a smile. Interesting? How, you can't be that confident, right? Hearing Chen Hao's words, Xia Yuyu couldn't help but turn to look at Chen Hao and transmit her voice. We'll only know after we fight. You can rest assured, Chen Hao said. How about another bet? At this time, Ling Yihan also turned his head and stared at Chen Hao. The corner of his mouth flashed with strong confidence as he sent a telepathic message. If you win this round, we'll be even. We won't owe each other anything. I couldn't ask for more. What do you want to bet? Chen Hao turned to Ling Yihan. Let's bet on whether I can defeat Wu Ruochen. Ahem. Hearing Ling Yihan's words, Chen Hao was a little dumbfounded. How do we bet? That's between the two of you. It has nothing to do with me, right? Why don't you bet on our rankings or on our battle? If I defeat Wu Ruochen, then I win. If I lose, it's my loss and we're even. Ling Yihan ignored Chen Hao's question and said confidently. Seeing Chen Hao's slightly shocked expression, Xia Yuyu frowned slightly, but she didn't know what the two were talking about. If that's the case, okay. I'll bet with you. Chen Hao pondered for a while and said. Wu Ruochen's level had increased. Even he had to be careful when facing him. Although Ling Yihan definitely had some hidden strength, in Chen Hao's opinion, it was still limited. It was unlikely that he could defeat Wu Ruochen. Moreover, Chen Hao couldn't think of any hidden strength that Ling Yihan had that would allow him to defeat Wu Ruochen. The odds of winning and losing were at best 50-50. It was worth a bet. After all, Chen Hao still owed him a promise. Even if he really won, it would just be adding one more. Too many debts, one wouldn't worry. But if he lost, it would be even. But why don't you compete with me? This doesn't fit your personality, Chen Hao said with a little pride. What's there to be proud of? It's only temporary. Wait for me. You'll understand when the time comes. Ling Yihan stopped talking halfway. At 7 o'clock, the female immortal appeared on the main seat on the rostrum punctually. She glanced at the respectful sect leaders and said lightly, You may begin. The 10-sided arena had already become an incomparably huge arena. The powerful enchantment seal was clearly much stronger than it was during the group stage. When the judge gave the order, Chu Qingtian and a weakling in the top 20 took the stage first. There was no elimination in the top 20 ranking competition. Everyone had to fight with the other 19 people. The order of the matches was directly arranged by the judge based on everyone's performance. Chu Qingtian, Xia Yuyu, Wu Ruochen, Chen Hao, Gu Xing, and Ling Yihan's order of appearance was based on the judge's estimation of their strength. If the contestants hadn't recovered to their peak state before the start of the next match, they could request for a delay. It was very fair. After 14 rounds of matches, a total of 140 matches, Chu Qingtian, Xia Yuyu, and Chen Hao all won, just like the judge's estimation. During this time, no one admitted defeat. Even if they met experts like Chu Qingtian and Xia Yuyu, who they knew were undefeatable, they would still fight with all their strength. After all, this was a chance to perform in front of the female immortal. Even if there was a slight chance of being chosen, they would still fight with all their might. In these 14 rounds of matches, Chu Qingtian and Xia Yuyu's strength was fully displayed. They defeated their opponents easily within 3 moves. Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing, and Ling Yihan also performed well. Although they weren't as good as Chu Qingtian and Xia Yuyu, they won easily. On the contrary, it was Chen Hao who had to waste a lot of time every time. No matter how strong or weak his opponent was, This guy always fought slowly. He didn't have the courage and valiance that he had in the past 2 days, allowing his opponent to unleash their full potential. But in the end, it was always a failure. In everyone's opinion, Chern Hao must be hiding his trump card. Also, it was because his cultivation was too low that he used such a fighting method. However, some sharp-eyed experts noticed that Chern Hao was acting strangely. This guy didn't treat the competition as a competition at all. He treated it as a battle to train himself. It had to be said that because of his cultivation, when he didn't use his trump card, he couldn't defeat anyone easily. After these 14 rounds of difficult battles, Chern Hao's control and utilization of his strength had obviously improved by a level. However, only a few people could see it. In the 15th round, the exciting match that everyone was waiting for finally arrived. First round, Chu Qingtian vs. Leng Yihan. Whoosh! As the referee's voice rang out, the dull martial arts arena finally became lively for the first time. It couldn't be helped. The previous matches were all about the strong versus the weak, or the weak versus the weak, that not many people paid attention to. At this moment, the dark horse Leng Yihan and the publicly acknowledged strongest Chu Qingtian appeared. At least it was more interesting. Leng Yihan will definitely lose against Chu Qingtian. I wonder if Chu Qingtian can finish the match in 3 moves? Or does Leng Yihan have an even stronger trump card? It's possible. Leng Yihan is someone that the Immortal Supreme values. He even gave the Immortal Supreme's token. How can such a person be so simple? However, it's obviously impossible for him to win against Chu Qingtian. Let's see how far he can push Chu Qingtian. Many people in the crowd discussed as they looked at Leng Yihan and Chu Qingtian. Leng Yihan took a deep breath and stood up. A cold battle intent rose from his body. Be careful. Don't be ruthlessly attacked by this guy. When Leng Yihan leaped up, Chern Hao hesitated for a moment before reminding him. Chern Hao was more or less conflicted. He avoided Leng Yihan like he was a snake or a scorpion, but deep in his heart, he couldn't see Leng Yihan as an opponent or an enemy. This feeling was very strange. It was so strange that Chern Hao wondered if he really had the tendency to have goosebumps just thinking about it. Leng Yihan's body froze for a moment before he sped up and stepped onto the arena. Chu Qingtian stood with his hands behind his back. The aura around him was no different from the previous matches. It was still dominating and looking down on everyone. However, deep in his eyes, there was a trace of coldness and viciousness that he didn't have when facing others. Feeling the aura on Chu Qingtian's body, Leng Yihan's expression turned serious. He knew very well that even if he exposed all his trump cards, he wouldn't be Chu Qingtian's opponent. Keeping his trump cards to deal with Wu Ruochen and Gu Xing was undoubtedly the best choice. However, Leng Yihan didn't plan to do that. This was because he knew that the abnormal Chern Hao would definitely exceed his expectations again. This was his intuition. When he saw Chern Hao's expression when he saw Chu Qingtian arrive, he understood this. Therefore, he had to force Chu Qingtian to use his trump cards as much as possible. Why don't you use your concealment skills? When the referee announced the start of the match, Chu Qingtian didn't make a move. Instead, he stared at Leng Yihan arrogantly and said with contempt, "Why would I need to conceal myself to deal with you?" Leng Yihan said with disdain, "Is that so? When you're at my level, I might believe you. But now, I'll make you get out of the arena within 10 moves. Boom!" As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Qingtian's aura surged violently. He wanted to provoke Leng Yihan, but he didn't dare to be too arrogant and vicious. After all, Leng Yihan's sect was able to obtain the Celestial Supreme token. It was obvious that the Celestial Supreme valued Leng Yihan. More or less, he had to be wary of the Celestial Supreme's feelings. Then let's try. Clang! Leng Yihan unsheathed his sword. The dazzling lightning sword light suddenly lit up the entire arena. Whoosh! At this moment, the entire arena was filled with exclamations and gasps. Everyone stared at Ling Yihan with wide eyes. Their expressions were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Did I sense it wrongly? Everyone, including the elder on the rostrum, asked in disbelief. Second update. Today's condition is really bad. The plot is about to turn. Wu Shan has a lot to think about. The speed is very slow. I'm screwing up. Wu Shan continued to write. If he can finish before 12, he will update the third chapter. I suggest that everyone wait. Wu Shan can't be sure if he can finish before 12. You can read it tomorrow. Also, I'm shamelessly asking for monthly votes and subscriptions. Wu Shan is really working hard, but his speed is too slow. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidien.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.